Good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on this first. Well, it's not technically spring yet. It doesn't really happen until 10 o'clock tonight, but we're just going to round up or round down or whatever. We're calling it the first day of spring. I wish it were a little warmer, but the warmer temperatures are on the horizon, so we'll get ready for that. Hope you're having a great day. We have some breaking news here. The Supreme Court has allowed a new Texas immigration law that gives police the power to arrest migrants to go into effect, at least for a while. This is big doings. This is huge. The Supreme Court on Tuesday, that's today, allowed Texas to enforce a new law that gives local police the power to arrest migrants. A 6-3 decision, split down the middle. Conservatives went one way. The 3 liberal justices went another. They dissented. But they have rejected an emergency request made by the Biden administration, which says that states have no authority to legislate on immigration, an issue the federal government, they claim, has sole power over. This means that the law can go into effect while litigation continues in a lower court. It could still be blocked at a later date, but you got to believe that with a 6-3 majority sending this signal, the sense of is that they might do that again. We'll see what happens in the lower court, but right now this is a huge, huge deal, a big victory. Brandon Judd speaks on behalf of the rank and file Border Patrol agents, and he is thrilled with this decision.
Oh, I'm ecstatic. This is going to be a great ruling for border security simply because it's going to be that deterrent that we're looking for. Anytime that you hold somebody accountable for violating our laws, you can expect a decrease in those violations. So, if Texas is able to implement this and they are able to charge people with trespassing and give them a consequence for the violation of that state law, we're going to see a decrease in illegal immigration through the state of Texas. The law is pretty strict. The law it's a pretty tightly written law. What I give Texas credit for is they looked at Arizona's law, SB 1070, and they recognized why it failed with the Supreme Court, and so they compensated. And so what they wrote into the law is it gives them great latitude to actually charge and hold people, but ultimately is what is a judge going to sentence these individuals to? And based upon that sentence is going to determine how long they're going to be held. But it really doesn't matter. Just the fact that you're going to be able to hold them, the fact that they're going to now have a criminal record, those facts are going to play into people's decision to cross into Texas. These individuals are not going to want that criminal record on their record because they're going to ultimately hope to get citizenship. And one of the things that stops you from getting citizenship is what is your criminal record. So, look, this is huge for border security. Once they start enforcing this, you can expect to see an immediate drop. So what the resources that are going to cost today are going to be a lot less than what they cost 7 days from now.
Again, that's Brandon Judd. He's one of the few people who can speak on behalf of the rank and file Border Patrol agents as the representative of their union. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick told Fox News this is also a big deal and talked about what it means in practical terms.
Sounds like the court has made this decision that Texas has the right to defend ourselves against this organized, mobilized, cartel-driven invasion of our country. This is historic today, and I'm thankful for the Supreme Court ruling. I believe the ruling was 6-3. Now, this just says it goes into effect while it works its way through the courts, but this is a big statement that we can go into action now, and this law can become effective now. When we arrest someone that we've seen crossing or we find out they've crossed here illegally, we will arrest them. We will get all of their information. So we will fingerprint them, we'll photograph them. We will do a background check. And then at that point, because they are here illegally, at that point, they can agree to spend 6 months in jail or go back to Mexico. If they go back and come back the second time, it increases to a felony, and they go to jail for many years.
And the bottom line is if you go across and you get caught by Texas officials, you could do 6 months in jail, 6 months minimum, or you got to go back. If you tried to come across again, you could be It could be a lot longer than that. That's going to put a real chill on the immigration efforts through the state of Texas, which, again, nobody knows how this is going to be adjudicated when it goes back down to the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans. But that's been a reasonable court. And we'll see. I mean, a huge thing. Let me give you the background on all of this. The law was passed in the state of Texas, and then a federal judge blocked the law after the Biden administration sued. But then the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said in a brief order that it could go into effect March 10th if the Supreme Court declined to intervene. Now, on March 4th, the Samuel Alito issued a temporary freeze on the law to give the Supreme Court more time to consider the matter. I think it was extended as late as yesterday, and then turned around today and handed down that said, nope, you can enforce this law while the matter is being adjudicated, and we'll see how long it takes. So, does this affect New Mexico? No. Does it affect Arizona? No. But it would seem to me that, what will happen is if it becomes a liability to come across the river in Texas, across the Rio Grande River, and you're going to do at least 6 months in jail, they'll move over to New Mexico. They'll move over to Arizona. There's actually not a great deal of illegal immigration that happens in New Mexico, but it does in Arizona and it does in California. And so they'll probably just, it'll just head everybody over there. But if Arizona and is alert, cunning, and sly, since they've already tried this route, they will exactly copy word for word what Texas has done, get it passed through their state legislature, and they too would be able to put people in jail for 6 months. And so, it really could have a big impact while this matter is being considered in the lower courts. I tell you, this is a big, big, big dog deal. The state of Texas has prevailed against the Biden administration. The Biden administration didn't want them to do this, saying, you know what, we are the federal government, and constitutionally we believe the federal government has an obligation to its responsibility for the border, but they weren't doing what they were supposed to do at the border. And I think that was figured into the high court's decision. What is a state to do if the federal government does not live up to its responsibilities under immigration law? And clearly, the Biden administration is not. Big, huge victory for the state of Texas, and a real body blow to the Biden administration, who believes that open borders are really what they want. They're all in favor of it. They talk a good game saying the border is under control, but you've seen the pictures and I've seen the pictures and the American people have seen the pictures, and they know that that's simply not true. That's why it's like the number one issue on the mind of voters. They're very concerned about what's happening on the border. So in the meantime, for the time being, this will be a huge tool for the state of Texas, which is going to have to put out some money, going to have to put out some resources, but they can also turn, as they did to the state of Tennessee, and say, Tennessee sent a bunch of people down to Texas. We've got a bunch there now, and we're going to have a bunch down there in a second wave ere long, based on my conversation with the governor just the other day. That's what he said. Other states can also assist Texas, and so it's a way now that, you can send your people down there and really back up the state of Texas in a huge way, and that helps the state of Texas, and I would argue it helps the nation. Boy, I'm telling you, what a big deal. Yesterday, the governor, Greg Abbott, said he will continue to enforce state border policies, even though he'd been told not to by the Supreme Court. And he said buoys that he'd put into the river will remain in the river. I don't know. He seems to be in some way defiant, but as it turns out, the high court, at least today, sided with him. In other news related to the border, lawmakers have resolved a dispute over border funds as a partial shutdown looms. This from the Wall Street Journal. Lawmakers who are finishing writing 6 annual spending bills have resolved a last-minute roadblock over border funding, setting the stage for Congress to review and approve legislation on a tight timetable that could take them to the brink of a partial government shutdown now looming this weekend. In a statement Tuesday morning, that's today, Speaker Mike Johnson said an agreement has been reached on the Homeland Security funds, and the House and Senate committees have begun drafting the bill text to be prepared for release and consideration by the full House and Senate as soon as possible. President Biden said Tuesday that a path on the remaining funding legislation had been finalized and he would sign the measure immediately when it gets to his desk. The legislation expected to be circulated to members in coming days. A House rule requires members to have 3 days to review most legislation, could push for a vote right up against a Friday deadline. One GOP aide said the legislative text would likely be published tomorrow, Wednesday, raising the possibility of a short partial shutdown over the weekend when most of the government is already closed. Lawmakers could also take another approach, such as another stopgap spending measure, to allow more time to finish the bills. But I think they'll try to push through and get it done. There may be a technical shutdown over the weekend, but it really won't matter all that much. So this has been a big fight. In early March, Johnson's team had expressed concern to the White House that the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, needed more money to stop migrants from crossing the border illegally and opposed more money for enforcement and shifting some funding priorities, according to a senior House Republican aide. But the White House has been silent about those concerns. Obviously, if they have agreed to those kind of things, they wouldn't want to advertise it because, quite frankly, it makes them look bad. Listen, in an election year, this is a big deal. And I'm telling you that the Supreme Court, I think, is sending a signal to the lower court that we believe that Texas is justified. And they may say that it's bad, it needs to be adjudicated at the lower court level. But you know that the lower court justices, who really do not want to be overturned in most things, is going to be looking at this and reading into this. And probably it's like a sign, I think, from the high court that this is what they think is the proper course of action. But the ability to stop when the federal government won't, the ability to stop these illegal migrants and threaten them with hard time, 6 months in jail. We catch you, you either go back to Mexico or we put you in the Hooskow for 6 months. I think it's going to have a chilling effect on all of what you see in the state of Texas. And if other states are alert, cunning, and sly, they will follow suit in very short order. Huge day, huge decision, 6-3 decision by the highest court in the land. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. If you've learned anything over the past few years, it's that we can expect change, and for those nearing retirement, change is scary. If you're worried about how things like inflation and interest rates will affect your retirement nest egg, why don't you use Beacon Capital Management's free retirement savings calculator? As I mentioned, it's free. It's very fast, about 30 seconds from start to finish, and you'll get your results right away. And if you look at those results and you ponder and you say, maybe I need some help here, I would recommend that you pick up the phone and you call this number, 615-488-9303. That's 615-488-9303. Beacon can help you make the right decisions going forward so you can have peace about your retirement plan. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, the number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at AskBeaconNow.com. Hey, there's Mac Morey with all your stories. Hey, Mac, good to see you in the chair there. He's also the host of the Wild Runaway Hit segment that we do here at 525, known as Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports. You want to hang around for that. This is, with March Madness and all. Well, we got stuff happening. We do. And there is Chris Webber. He's there in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons. I mean, it's a very busy place. A lot of buttons and swirly computer images that I don't know what they do, but somehow
I don't even know what most of them do.
Yeah, I know.
But I just push them anyway.
You push them and see what happens.
That could happen?
A lot could happen. This is, of course, the first. Well, it's not officially the first day of spring. The first full day of spring will be tomorrow.
Right.
But the vernal equinox. All right, this is a big word for you. Vernal equinox occurs at our time, 10:06.
10:06 p.m.
Equinox is Latin for equal nights, and that means that the nights are equal, and it means that the northern and western hemispheres, as I understand it, are getting the same amount of sunshine and the same amount of night today.
Whether you're here or you're here,
That's right. Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's where everything is equal. And so that happens, as I say, about 10:06. The technical word is vernal, which means spring. So you could just call it the spring equinox and you'd be fine.
Okay.
There. Everything you wanted to know about the first day of spring.
Which is
except that it's not a very warm first day of spring.
Yeah.
That's
right because we're not spring yet, see?
That's right. 10:06. And tomorrow now, well, I don't know. It's not horrible. It's 56 degrees here, and it's not bad here in
seasonal. I think.
Yeah, that's not bad. Tomorrow it's 60, and then I think we get back into the 70s, maybe next week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready. I'm ready for spring. Except that now, as I was talking with Matt Murphy, I'm very conflicted now about what I should do as we start to work back in our yards. I mean, I mowed this weekend. And it's really great because all the weeds are now the same level, and they look better when they're all the same level.
Yeah, that's a start.
That's a good start. And then I've got these dadgum Bradford pears, which I'm reading so much about. Apparently they're reviled, and I've got 10 of them. I went out and counted on my property, and I've got 10.
Wow, that's a lot of trash trees.
That's a lot of trash tree is what that is, and stinky trash trees that put blossoms in your pool. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but, now I'm thinking that, I need to maybe take some big action. But, I mean, have you priced out having somebody come down and cut a tree down?
I haven't. Don't want to.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
I bet.
And can you imagine multiply what it takes to take down one tree times 10?
You get the group discount, I would think.
Maybe I could do that, 2 for 1.
Ooh, There you go.
And I'd only have to pay for 5.
Pay for 5, yeah.
Maybe I could
buy 5, get 5 free.
Maybe somebody listening out there will, reach out to me on the Members Nutrition Super Text line and tell me, that they'll give me a good deal on cutting down my trees. I'm not supposed to use the radio for that, though, am I? I'm sorry.
Then you take a chance of, oh, yeah, I got a chainsaw. I'll take them down for you.
I got a chainsaw, yeah. Bubba will just show up with a chainsaw. Then you end up having the trees falling into your house. Well, I've got one I got to take out for sure, but I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I mean, I'm really conflicted about they are not good.
I kind of feel bad, Brian, because I feel partially responsible for pointing out that you had these trees in the first place.
I never knew it was a trash tree until you told me.
Sorry. You could have been blissfully ignorant?
Yeah, well, and I was. I mean, I never ever heard of a Bradford pear tree. To me, I always thought, that people always back in Texas were always talking bad about the fruitless mulberry.
Okay.
But I don't think I never heard about a Bradford pear until you mentioned that they're trash trees, and now everything I read says that this a lot of states are now outlawing them. Now that doesn't mean that if they outlawed them here in Tennessee, which I don't know if they're even considering it, but if they did, that doesn't mean you have to take one down. You just can't plant.
Can't plant them.
Yeah, and they'll die off on their own because they're not long-lived trees.
Yeah, I think I looked it up yesterday, and it was like 15 to 25 years is the normal lifespan.
Well,
what are those?
Then these trees that I have are 20 years old.
Well,
roughly.
You can wait them out maybe and see what happens.
Maybe they'll start dying off, and then I'll have a good reason to cut them down. I read that in D.C., this is the time of year where the cherry blossoms around the Washington and Lincoln Memorial. Oh, it's just beautiful. It's just spectacular. Given to us initially by the Japanese, they're going to have to take out like 120 of those trees.
Wow.
Because they have to do some major construction work because the retention area there where all the water comes in apparently is falling apart, and they're going to take out 120 trees. And they say, but don't worry, we'll replant them. And I said, well, yeah, but, the Japanese. Then I found out, well, the Japanese trees that were donated, they're all dead. These are replacements. The Japanese trees died a long time ago. They got old and they died. And so when they die, they replaced them. So none of the trees that are there in Washington are actually from the Japanese people. But I got to tell you, it's my favorite time of year. Well, I mean, I like seeing the blossoms. Hated seeing the tour buses.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Oh, it is a big deal. And if you've never seen them, they're really trying to hit peak is a real challenge because it varies from year to year. And they have a cherry blossom festival, and there have been times where the cherry blossoms have come and gone before the festival happens.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful there. All right, it's now 30 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock, time for the news.
.31, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 58 degrees, a little windy. Got a weather forecast, traffic report coming up. It's not a ruling on the merits, but for now, the Supreme Court permitting the Texas immigration law SB 4 to go into effect. Stephen Portnoy reports from Washington.
The new law permits Texas law enforcement to arrest migrants, and it allows state judges to order them to leave the country. A federal judge has ruled SB 4 unconstitutional, saying it encroaches on federal authority. But the Fifth Circuit Appeals Court said despite that, the Texas law should be able to go into effect as the case plays out. And now the Supreme Court has said the same. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor has written a furious dissent, saying the High Court's action, quote, invites further chaos and crisis.
Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says Governor Bill Lee has signed a bill that bans emotional support animals from restaurants and hotels. Only trained service dogs, police dogs, and fish that are inside of a tank are allowed inside of restaurants. And the situation in Haiti getting increasingly worse as gangs have essentially overtaken the government and have hamstrung most, if not all, government services. Gang violence, shootings, lootings, and arsons are rampant all over Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, and the U.S. is hard at work getting Americans out of Haiti by helicopter. Matt Rivers is there and says that no aid has been able to get in.
This is an island country. Its border with the Dominican Republic has been closed. The port has been closed, and gangs control all the ways in and out of the city. And that is how gangs hold leverage, by controlling that, keeping any supplies that might get in for themselves. Meanwhile, the several million people that live in this city are quite literally going to begin to starve at some point if some solution isn't worked out.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
King and Associates Insurance is in Brentwood, an independent agency that's been there for about 25 years, a quarter century. Now, listen, why do you want an independent agency? It's a good thing. It really works to your advantage in so many ways. For one thing, they're not trying to just shove one product that they happen to have down your throats. They can shop around and look at a whole bunch of different products to make sure that you get the insurance policy that really meets your needs. That way you get more bang for your insurance buck. And the other thing that I think is amazing is that they really are good at customer service. I mean, if you ever did business with one of those, insurance companies on the internet, you know how those people are. You try to get a hold of them, you got a question, you're going to be on the phone for hours. You get that recording that says, hey, we know your call is important to us. Please stand by. But you know it's not important to you, or they would answer the phone. Well, guess what? At King & Associates, you dial this number, 615-329-8121, and somebody will actually answer the phone, a real live human being who will help solve your problem. All kinds of things are possible, and they are the kings of multi-policy discounts. Take a look at how much money you can save by bundling. 20, 25, 30, 35%. The savings can be huge. So why don't you get your royal review with King & Associates Insurance? Just log into tkinginsurance.com. That's tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance & Associates. You'll get royal treatment and great rates. .39 minutes now past the hour at 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I just happened to be looking at my news monitor here in the studio, and Donald Trump has just cast his ballot in the Florida primary, and he came and stalked after he cast his ballot, I guess, for him, I would imagine.
I was going to say, did they ask him who he voted for?
Yeah, it's a wag. I don't know. But I think he probably voted for himself. But what's notable about it is by his side was Melania, who we've not seen a great deal of. And she was there, as always, looking beautiful and just perfectly appointed in every way. But anyway, so that's interesting. People have been wondering, why has Melania not been out there? Where has she been? But here she was alongside the Donald there in Florida as he cast his ballot. We'll get into the 2024 news, and there is some coming up at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Let's head down to the swamp, if you could. Justice Jackson of the Supreme Court apparently has a problem with the First Amendment. Seems like if you were a Supreme Court justice, you would have a pretty good understanding of the First Amendment, since it's, the First Amendment and all, and freedom of speech, etc. But there is a big First Amendment case that was argued before the Supreme Court yesterday. Let me see if I can give you the background on it. It's Murthy versus Missouri, according to Fox News, a case challenging the Biden administration's alleged coordination with big tech to censor certain messages. Now, the case stemmed from a lawsuit brought by Republican-led states, Missouri and Louisiana, that accused high-ranking government officials of working with social media companies under the guise of combating misinformation. That ultimately led to censoring speech on topics that included Hunter Biden's laptop, the origins of COVID-19, and the efficacy of face masks, which the states argued was a First Amendment violation. As the justices questioned whether the Biden administration crossed the constitutional line, Jackson, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the newest member of the High Court, appeared to suggest that such actions could be justified.
Justice Jackson?
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods.
And she went on to say, and so I guess some might say the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country. And you seem to be suggesting that the duty cannot manifest itself in the government encouraging or even pressuring platforms to take down harmful information. So she was really asking that. Jim Jordan, member of Congress, was in the High Court for the arguments, and he was shocked, stunned, as we all are, shocked, stunned, and amazed in what Ketanji Brown Jackson has said, suggesting that it was inappropriate for to suggest that the government could be hamstringed by the First Amendment. Says Jordan.
The big takeaway today was Ketanji Brown Jackson when she said to the Solicitor General from Louisiana, she said, "You've got the First Amendment hamstringing the government." Well, that's what it's supposed to do, for goodness sake. It was literally one of the craziest things I've ever seen, that you could have a justice on the United States Supreme Court say that in the oral argument. It made no sense to me. That is frightening, because if she really believes that is scary where we're headed. Understand what took place here. This was censorship by surrogate. This was big government telling big tech to take down speech they disagreed with. And it was the most fundamental kind of speech. It was political speech, the kind that's supposed to have the most heightened scrutiny you can have before you can take that down. But that's what took place. And then to have a justice on the Supreme Court say what she said, that is frightening.
Yeah, it is frightening. And, listen, I'll tell you, the Biden administration did absolutely, it seemed to me, go too far in their collaboration with big tech. I mean, we all now know that the Hunter Biden laptop was absolutely real. It was Hunter Biden's laptop. Everybody now agrees on that. But back in the day, the Biden administration was out there, and the people who were associated with Joe Biden were out there trying to, collaborate with social media and tell them, no, be careful, Russian disinformation. They knew it wasn't Russian disinformation. They basically collaborated in a huge way to change the narrative on a story that really does have implications for the last election. I mean, it might have gone a different way if everything had come out and everybody knew right off the bat, and there wasn't a suppression of certain stories like Miranda Devine's outstanding reporting over at the New York Post. Then, we could have had a different outcome in the election. That's how important this was. So when government acts badly, it's inappropriate of them to do that. And I think we do need to put restraints on the government and their ability to interact with big media and social media in a way to change the narratives, not because they're trying to keep people from harm, but because it's politically expedient for them to do that. Pretty amazing. And then there's this, long as we're talking about the high court today, an increasing number of Democrats and liberals are growing quite concerned over the looming possibility that Joe Biden could lose the election in November and usher in another term for Donald Trump. An unsubtle sign of progressive voices all but saying this directly can be found in suggestions on the left that Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor should retire quickly and allow Joe Biden to nominate her replacement rather than take the risk that Trump could inherit the task. You see, if the left is really concerned, and Sotomayor is, up there in age, and some suggest maybe her retirement might not be too far in the offing. If she retires and Donald Trump is the president, guess what? Instead of a 6-3 high court, it becomes a 7-2 high court. That's right. And so liberals are now beginning to freak out because they are looking at the same polls that I'm looking at and that you're looking at that show that Donald Trump is doing okay. Again, we'll get into that in the 4 o'clock hour, but he's doing okay, and Joe Biden is not doing so well. And they say if Sotomayor were to get out now, then they would have the chance to appoint a replacement while the nomination would come from the president and it would be confirmed in the democratically controlled Senate. You may have a Republican president, and there's a very good chance of a Republican Senate after this next coming election, and that would mean a very different outcome. So that's what's happening. The liberals are now looking around saying, Sotomayor, maybe, a little elbow out the door. Maybe it's time for you to think about going, and retiring. She will turn 70 in June. If she retires this year, President Biden will nominate a young and reliably liberal judge to replace her. Republicans do not control the Senate floor, cannot force the seat to be held open like they did when Scalia died. Confirmation of the new justice would be a slam dunk, and liberals would have successfully shored up one of their seats on the court, playing the kind of defense that is smart and prudent if you're a Democrat. If she does not retire this year, as they say, this is somebody writing about it, to say, well, it's possible that Donald Trump gets it, and the Republican Senate would quickly, and I think there's a really good chance we're going to have a Republican Senate, the way it's fallen this time. So no suggestion that Sotomayor is actually considering retirement imminently. But I got to tell you, there's going to be a lot of people dropping not so subtle hints that this needs to happen. But what that really tells you is Democrats are extremely worried about the way things are shaping up. They look, as we all do, at this shell of a man who now purports to be the president of the United States and the leader of the free world. And they look at him stumbling and stuttering and having brain freezes and just looking, like clean up on aisle Biden every time he gets in front of a microphone, and they're worried, and they should be, because I'm telling you the things as they are shaping up now look pretty good for Donald Trump, and by the way, pretty good for Republicans to take the Senate. I'm not sure they'll be able to hold on to the House, but I do think there's a good chance they take the Senate. So, all of this stuff happening in the swamp right now sort of suggests that liberals are getting extremely nervous. Will Sotomayor take the hint? I don't think she will, quite frankly. And she probably will want to stay in just a little bit longer. But think about this. She's going to be 70 years old before long, and in June. And then, if you get a Republican president, then you're committing yourself to staying in that office until you're 74. And will she do that? I don't know. And who knows how long she wants to stay in there. There have been justices who've stayed that long, and there's certainly no law that says they have to get out at a certain age, although I think there should be. So I don't know if she'll take the hint or not, but one way or the other, watch it carefully. I'm telling you one other thing. If I know anything, I've covered so many Supreme Court confirmation battles. This will be, you talk about an interesting deal. This will be a blowout story if indeed she does retire and Biden gets the opportunity to nominate another justice. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about my friends at Nashville Golden Coin. They are about to relocate to a new office space, and because of that, they're reducing inventory and offering silver coins and bars at their lowest price. Maybe you've seen that gold and silver prices are soaring right now. Well, this could be your best opportunity to get in with some super low premiums. They've got your generic silver rounds and bars offered as low as $150 over spot price. They are selling the top-of-the-line American Silver Eagles for about $350 over spot price from now until March 26th. Silver Canadian Maple Leafs now as low as $2 over spot price. They do have a limited supply at these prices, so give them a call today. They continue to stock all your gold and silver staples as well. If you've been on the fence about putting your dollars into hard assets, there has never been a better time to jump in with Nashville Golden Coin. Listen, set up your one-on-one appointment by going to NashvilleGoldenCoin.com. Again, big deal, limited time offer at NashvilleGoldenCoin.com.
An immigration law in Texas now put into effect after the Supreme Court's ruling. A Riley Strain update as that family is here in Nashville. Crime at a laundromat and sentencing day for a former Mississippi sheriff's deputy convicted of torturing 2 men. Those stories coming up 4 o'clock. Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
It is 57 minutes now past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Take a look at the market and how it closed. A good day on the markets. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 320 points. The S&P up 29. The NASDAQ up 63. So green screens on all the major indices. But really, right now, it's all about interest rates and what is the Fed going to do. Ty Draper is standing by over at Beacon Capital Management with more on that. Good afternoon, Ty.
Yeah, hey, Brian. A recent CNBC Fed survey is indicating that the economy will avoid a recession and possibly pull off a soft landing. The March survey shows the probability of a soft landing at 52%, which is the highest since last July of 2022. Survey also indicated the probability of a recession at 32%, which is the lowest going all the way back to February of 22. Respondents forecasted that 3 rate cuts were probably the most likely to happen in late third quarter, and the survey was a little bit less optimistic about S&P returns. This makes the 2-day Fed meeting a must-watch television for investors.
All right, and we will be watching. Thank you very much, Ty. Find out about all the things that Ty and John Maxon and all the good people over at Beacon Capital Management can do for you. Just go to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 58 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Imagine what you could do if you didn't feel any pain. Maybe you have a loved one that's experiencing pain. Well, Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley over at the Wellness Institute of Nashville want to help you find a pain-free life. Because getting better and feeling healthy is important to Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley. They are freezing costs for you at 2023 levels. That's right. Half off spinal decompression treatments, half off the KT knee machine, and new patients can get a full consultation for only $23. Now, this is what you get with that: an exam, a consultation, x-rays included if you need it. If you have an MRI or you have your own x-rays, bring them in. They'll take a look at them. They often find things that other people miss. But again, all of that for just $23. Dr. Mitchell will go over your condition and put together a game plan that'll help you feel better quick. So call Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley to set up your consultation today at 615-246-5009. I'm Brian Wilson, and I put my stamp of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 58 degrees on Music Row. Traffic report, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The Supreme Court permitting the controversial Texas immigration law SB 4 to go into effect. Stephen Portnoy reports from Washington.
It's not a ruling on the merits, just a decision not to intervene now. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor says the action, quote, invites further chaos and crisis, allowing Texas to upend the federal-state balance of power. SB 4 empowers local police to arrest migrants and permits state judges to order them to, quote, return to the foreign nation from which the person entered.
Here in Tennessee, a Riley Strain update. The search lives on for the 21-year-old University of Missouri student who went missing on March 8th after being kicked out of Luke Bryan's bar on Broadway. Back on Thursday, officials cleaned out the banks of the river, didn't find anything until TikTok influencers found Riley's bank card. That's the only physical evidence that's been found so far. Strain's family feels as if the search has slowed down and they're taking matters into their own hands. Channel 4's Brendan Tierney.
Riley's parents, his mom and stepfather, Chris and Michelle, have been out here in Nashville since he was reported missing. They say more resources are needed to find more clues, and they're concerned that the search is slowing down. So they're bringing in 2 boats from the United Cajun Navy to help join the search effort.
The family is thankful for the search crews and the effort. They feel as if, though, more organization is needed in the search. Some Metro detectives are putting a boat back on the water to begin searching again today. And crime in Tennessee. 45-year-old Christopher Pride has been arrested after allegedly breaking into a laundromat, causing thousands of dollars worth in damages. He was caught by K-9 officer Wick while inside of the laundromat around 5 a.m. According to officials, the owner allegedly told officers there was damage to 2 entry doors, a coin changer, a credit card validator, a drop ceiling, and 2 safes. That damage all comes to a value of over $35,000. Pride remains jailed on a $22,500 bond. And sentencing day for a former Mississippi Sheriff's deputy convicted of torturing 2 men, Derek Dennis.
Former Mississippi Sheriff's Deputy Hunter Elward sentenced to about 20 years in prison for joining 5 other white former officers in January, bursting into a home without a warrant and assaulting 2 black men, shoving a gun into the mouth of one of them in a mock execution that failed. After sentencing, victim Eddie Parker expressed forgiveness, saying he's satisfied with 20 years.
He still did, what he did, and he has to be punished for it.
The other victim, Michael Jenkins, says he can't forgive, but is glad Elward looked him in the eye and apologized for what was described as racist torture, saying he got what he deserved. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. Hour number 2 of The Drive on this sunny Tuesday, March 19th, the first day of spring. Well, I always want to be a stickler for accuracy. Spring vernal equinox officially happens about 6 hours from now. But we're rounding off. So, first day of spring. The first full day of spring will be tomorrow. More than you cared to know about the vernal equinox, I'm certain. But, we want to get it right. Time for our 2024 update. And there are big primaries happening. Of course, it's all over. Trump has clinched. Biden has clinched. But still, there are many states having their primaries. There we go. Where are they? They're in Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kansas, and Ohio. Biden is expected to be in to do the same and get the additional numbers and additional delegates in all of those states except for Florida. And the reason why is the Democrats canceled their primary there. That's not unusual for a party with an incumbent in the White House seeking re-election. We will actually have Biden in Nevada and Arizona today. And you may say, well, why is he going there? Well, he's not doing well there. Real Clear Politics average of polls has Trump leading in Arizona by 5.2, and in Nevada, Trump is leading by 5.6. So what's going on? Because these are usually closely contested states, and Trump seems to have a pretty big advantage. Well, listen to Harry Enton, who is a CNN analyst on such things. He crunches the data as he talks about the importance of Nevada and Arizona for the sitting president of the United States.
Biden barely won Arizona back in 2020, won it by well less than a percentage point, won Nevada by a little bit more than 2 percentage points. Look now where we are in the 2024 polling. Joe Biden's numbers are weak. Donald Trump up in the polling average in Arizona by 5, up in Nevada by 5 percentage points. If these polls hold, Donald Trump would be the first Republican presidential candidate to carry this over state since 2004 when George W. Bush carried it.
What appears to have changed inside some of these numbers that you're looking at?
How about Hispanic voters, right? A core part of the Democratic constituency. Normally, back in 2020, Joe Biden carried Hispanic voters in Arizona by 24 points. He carried them in Nevada by 26 points. Look now, Joe Biden still leads, but these margins have shrunk significantly. Been cut by more than half in Arizona, 11 points. Been cut by a third of where the lead was back in 2020. It's just an 8-point advantage for Joe Biden. And this is what we have seen as well nationally. Joe Biden's polling numbers among blacks and Hispanics have dropped significantly.
That's amazing. That's interesting, don't you think? It's being driven by the fact that Hispanic voters are walking away from the Democrat Party. Black voters in larger numbers are walking away from the Democrat Party, and it shows up in a lot of different places. In a marginal election, if you have a great number of Hispanic voters who normally vote, in the Democrat column, who are now going to vote for Trump, and black voters, same thing, it really makes a huge difference. And that is absolutely traceable and detectable in looking at some of these numbers out there. I also wanted to point out that Enton, listen, he's sending up a flare. He's over at CNN. So he's sending up a flare when he does this, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong about this. And he agrees with my premise that, Michigan and maybe Georgia are going to be very big states going forward for Joe Biden if he has any chance at all. And because, again, Donald Trump is leading in Georgia and in Michigan. Here's more from Harry Enton.
So if Biden loses Arizona and Nevada, he likely must win at least 3 of these 4: Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Now, Biden could do it if he won Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He'd barely get to 270. Here's the issue right now. Biden seems to be trailing not just in Georgia, but in Michigan as well. And if he loses these 2, John, I can't find a map that would work for him. So it's simple math at this point. Biden's behind in Arizona. He's behind in Nevada. He's behind in Georgia. He's behind in Michigan. And if that map holds, ball game over, most likely. Donald Trump wins.
That's right. Donald Trump wins. And that's why I told you yesterday, keep your eyes on Michigan. And he makes a good point about Georgia, but I looked at the numbers. in Georgia. And I don't see, hang on just a second, let me just pull it up to double check myself, because I looked at the numbers and it seemed to me, now I can't. Now my stupid thing is not working correctly. But I think the numbers look pretty good for Biden in Georgia as well. Where is it? I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to have to come back to it later. I'll get it to you in a bit. Don't know why that's acting up, but it is. All right. Computers. What else can I say? There is a great story here in Washington Examiner, and it says the title of it is Trophy Cabinet, the big hitters being floated for a new Trump administration. Former President Donald Trump is the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, and his team is reportedly already floating ideas for a second-term cabinet if he wins the November election against Joe Biden. The names being considered include two of Trump's former GOP primary opponents, and according to Bloomberg report that cited anonymous sources familiar with the conversations. The report claimed that Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran against the former president in the primary but was always complimentary of Trump throughout the campaign, has been ruled out for vice president, but he's being considered for Homeland Security Secretary or other cabinet positions. Ramaswamy is not the only former opponent Trump is considering employing in a future administration. Few 2024 rivals are in contention for a spot that Trump at the top of the ticket as the running as the vice president. But Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, one person the former president has not ruled out. Scott's hardline views on abortion, a topic Trump has said he thinks is a weakness for Republicans, could complicate his viability, but the senator has received support from fellow Senators Lindsey Graham and John Thune. Other contenders for the former president's vice president nominee include Kristi Noem, South Dakota, Byron Donalds, interesting choice, former Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard, and Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. A decision on who Trump's running mate will be likely occur before the Republican National Convention, which takes place July 15th through 18th in Milwaukee. For Energy Secretary, Governor Doug Burgum is one of the wealthiest governors in the country, worth an estimated $1.1 billion. After he sold a software company to Microsoft, he doesn't have a background in energy, but Burgum, like Trump, is a strong supporter of fossil fuels and made energy a primary pillar of his White House run. Chief of Staff, how about this? Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's rocky relationship with Trump was never as fraught as the more powerful figures such as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who also came around to line up behind Trump when it was clear he was going to be the party's nominee. Though he has left Congress, McCarthy's connections to members on the Hill and his relationships with other people in Washington are something Trump values, according to the report. Attorney General, how about this one I love. I love both of these. I really like this. You ready? After rotating through multiple acting and confirmed attorneys general in his first term, Trump is considering dipping into the Senate to elevate his next top law enforcement official. This would be brilliant. This would be so good. Senators Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, Ted Cruz of Texas, Mike Lee of Utah, have both been floated as options given their relationships with other senators in what should be a relatively easy confirmation process. It's true that Trump famously clashed with Cruz on the campaign trail in 2016, but they have kissed and made up over time. And Cruz, can you imagine? Let me tell you something about Ted Cruz. I'm a big fan of Ted Cruz, and I'm telling you why. He's probably the smartest senator of all the United States senator. I mean, when he went to law school, I can't remember if it's Harvard or Yale, but it's one of those. And he graduated. Even then, he was a conservative. But his teachers were wowed by this guy, said he was one of the best legal minds to ever come through the school.
It was Harvard, by the way.
It was Harvard. Thank you for checking on that. I appreciate it. I thought that was right. Harvard Law, and his professors were wowed, even though they didn't always agree with his takes on things. They said that he may have been one of the brightest legal minds to ever come through. He really should have been on the Supreme Court. He would have been phenomenal. But one way or the other, as Attorney General, that would be a thing. That would be a thing. Washington Examiner, Biden campaign concedes the race against Trump will be tough as they are undergoing this southwestern swing through Arizona and Nevada. At the end of the day, we know this is going to be tough, close race. A Biden campaign aide told reporters Monday, that's why we're investing in multiple ways to get to 270 electoral college votes. I don't see them. This is the thing. Everybody says, well, the numbers can change, and that's true. And people say the numbers could be wrong, and that is indeed true. But the numbers are all sort of aligning up in the same way, and there's a trend that is identifiable away from Biden toward Trump. And I keep thinking that this election cycle is a little different in one way, in that the reason you often have changes at the last minute is there are usually a group of people who stand by. They're not that focused on politics, and they wait, and then they have to make a judgment. And sometimes the people who are running are not known to them very well, and they have to really ponder, which way do I want to go? There's no pondering here. I mean, you know what you got with Donald Trump, and you know what you have with Joe Biden. These are two personalities that are well known to Americans. Well known. So that's why I don't think there's going to be a lot of shifting. I think people have locked in. And either you like Donald Trump or you don't like Donald Trump. There aren't many people that are on the bubble. Either you like Joe Biden or you don't like Joe Biden. But I don't think there's a great deal of people. Well, I think there may be people on the bubble, but it's mostly because of his age. They're concerned about his age, and they're concerned about a Vice President Harris taking over. So I'm telling you right now, I think these numbers may be a lot more solid than they normally are in a regular election cycle. So there you have it. A busy day and the election, but I got to tell you, I think that's really interesting what has been said about minority voters now making a move toward Trump. That to me is a clearly identifiable trend and tells me that there's something big going on out there with this electorate. This could be a transition election that could change very much the way people consider themselves and think of themselves as Republican versus Democrat. I think that's where we are right now. And I think it's going to be one of these, maybe like in a Reagan election, where Reagan got a bunch of Democrats to come over and become what he called Democrats for Reagan. And they eventually became members of the Republican Party because of Reagan. I kind of feel like this might be that kind of election. It sure feels like something's going on out there that's identifiable. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. D.T. McCall, a good company, been around for more than 100 years. And if you've been thinking about getting something for your house, you need furniture, you need appliances, you need a mower, whatever it is, they got everything. You're just a few days away from their big spring sale. And everything is going to be marked down. This is going to be the time to buy. March 22nd through the 30th, you have to be ready to go to one of their 5 locations, which is Carthage, Lafayette, Lebanon, Cookeville, and Franklin. Go by and take a look at what they got, and then get ready to take action on the 22nd. You need a new bedroom suite. They got Amish handcrafted All-American beds made in Tennessee, and you need a mower. I'm telling you, there are going to be some good prices on mowers and coupons that you can get a big discount. I have one of those Cub Cadet mowers. I got it, and I just love it. I mean, that thing is a beast, and it just gets there done. So whatever it is you need for your home, remember, the big sale happening on March 22nd through the 30th at one of your 5 convenient locations, Carthage, Lafayette, Lebanon, Cookeville, or Franklin. And you can learn more by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
President Biden in Nevada today, pointing out the main difference between him and former President Donald Trump. And we'll have today's Money News. Those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, that's Mac Morey with all the stories. And in the control room, we have Chris Weber. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive at 425 on Super Talk 99.7. Listen, George Stephanopoulos is a guy who is a partisan activist who parades as a journalist. Oh, he's on that Good Morning America. He does the nice, soft interviews and all of that. But, right behind that image that he has cultivated so well on Good Morning America is a shark. He's always been a shark. He plays hardball like nobody's business. And so when he got into it with Nancy Mace, remember that interview that we had a few weeks ago where he got into it with Nancy Mace, and it really devolved into quite a viral thing. Remember?
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
I was raped at the age of 16, and I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential rape victim.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald
Trump. No, you
Trump.
are shaming you.
Women won't come forward because they're defamed by those who perpetrate rape. Donald Trump
they are judged and they're shamed.
What you're doing is defending a man who's been found liable for rape. I don't understand how you can do that.
Not in a criminal court of law. This was a civil judgment over sexual abuse.
Well, it was not a rape. It was not what he was accused of. First of all, you just have to go back. This moment where he said, that rape victims won't come forward because that people will defame them. Does the name Paula Jones ring a bell? George? Come on. I mean, you were right there among them. Now, when it suits your purpose, you're happy to claim. But when you were in the White House and you were running for the office and you were working with Bill Clinton, you were one of the attack dogs who tried to destroy the reputation of Paula Jones and others who made very credible claims against Bill Clinton. So that's a little rich, honestly. But now, get this, former President Trump has filed a defamation lawsuit against ABC News and George Stephanopoulos, claiming that the former president claiming his reputation was tarnished by the anchor, saying multiple times on air that he'd been found liable for raping writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump filed the lawsuit in federal court in Miami on Monday over a viral interview between U.S. Representative Nancy Mace and Stephanopoulos on this week, March 10th, according to The Hill. The suit takes aim at Stephanopoulos' questioning for saying Trump had been found liable for rape when a jury in Manhattan civil case last year only found Trump liable for sexual abuse under New York law. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape and defaming the victim for rape. How do you square that, he asked? But it wasn't that at all. In a 20-page complaint, Trump's attorney, Alejandro Brito, accused Stephanopoulos of making false statements with actual malice or with a reckless disregard for the truth. Now, here's the thing. In defamation cases, it's very hard for public figures to prevail. But what you have to show is that there was actual malice and a reckless disregard for the truth. And I think that's provable in this particular case. We know he has malice toward Trump. He hates Trump. That's very clear. You can pull up all kinds of things where he's been nothing but critical of Trump. The lawsuit claims the statements were distributed widely to third parties and repeated. So listen, I think George Stephanopoulos has a real problem here. ABC News has a real problem. And I think this might be a case where, even though he's a public figure, I think he may prevail in a big way. Really, honestly, Stephanopoulos should not be doing political interviews in an election season, and he should never, ever bring up an issue like this, given his history and his past with noted philanderer Bill Clinton. Please, George. I had to spend a couple of days in a small booth with George one time when I know it sounds strange. there was a big hearing, and there were these booths where you had a high camera angle, and you could stay up and look down over the hearing room, and there weren't enough to go around, so you had to share. You had to share the booth, and so I ended up in this small room with George Stephanopoulos for about 3 days. And, he can be nice enough, but I remember when I was a member of the White House press corps covering Bill Clinton, and that man, he was vicious. I mean, he did everything in the world he could do to come after us folks at Fox. And it was tough trying to get information out of that White House when George Stephanopoulos had it in for us, and he did. It's 30 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 58 degrees on Music Row. Got to forecast that traffic report just ahead in 5 minutes. President Biden is in Nevada today thanking and encouraging volunteers to help make sure he wins his second term next fall. He's also making it clear the difference between the two top presidential candidates. Andy Field has details.
President Biden telling his Reno, Nevada campaign volunteers that he is serving all Americans and Donald Trump is not, pointing to a speech Mr. Trump made to wealthy donors.
Describe the crowd as, I know you're rich as hell, but that's why I'm going to give you another big tax cut.
Mr. Biden saying he's fighting to raise the nation's wealthiest and corporations' minimum tax brackets, claiming it would collect nearly $500 billion more a year in tax.
The most recent polling from MorningConsult.com has the presidential race at a tie, with each candidate garnering 43% of the votes. Now over to some money news. Daria Albinger.
Stocks continue to rise as the market waits on the Fed. The Dow is up 320 points, the Nasdaq ahead 63, and the S&P closed up 29 points at a record high. The Federal Reserve is meeting, but it's not expected to make any changes in interest rates this time around. Inflation, still a top concern for small businesses. The National Federation of Small Businesses Optimism Index fell to 89.4 last month, which makes for more than 2 years below the 50-year average of 98. Unilever is cutting 7,500 jobs, a company that makes Dove soaps, Vaseline body products, along with Ben & Jerry's, and Magnum bars is also spinning off its ice cream business to reduce costs and boost profits. The White House is expected this week to announce new auto emission standards, which will relax proposed limits for 3 years, a result of slowing EV sales. The new standards were based on zero tailpipe emissions.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
One thing that really makes Genesis Diamonds stand out from any other jewelry store is the education you get. They're not clerks behind the counter. They are seasoned pros, and they know everything there is to know about diamonds. And they will take the time to teach you in a way that is transparent, informal, informative, useful. They'll even teach you how to buy like a dealer buys. They will show the inside secrets of the diamond industry and will show you how diamonds are priced and graded on the world market. I mean, this is how you can maximize your budget. And they will also teach you about lab-grown diamonds and how you need to be very, very careful with where and how you buy them. This is all done in a relaxed, no pressure, no expectations kind of atmosphere. I mean, I did this when I got Cabana Wife's ring. And I can tell you, it was a great process. And they're not going to pressure you because they know if they teach you when it's time, you'll know where to come. They will let you see 10, 15, 20 diamonds in your price range. And then you can look at them side by side and make an intelligence decision. It's a no-brainer. The education you want, the selection you need, the price you deserve, zero risk, zero pressure. Genesis Diamonds voted best jewelry store and the best place to buy an engagement ring 10 years in a row. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Well, sadly it is. Yeah, okay. That's right, it's a woke world. Oh, they're not done. No, they're done. Okay. Caitlyn Jenner backs a New York County's ban on transgender in female sports. I mean, honestly, I just gotta have to say, if you want to be transgendered and you're an adult and that's a decision that you've made, I don't care. Knock yourself out. But when you start playing on girls' teams, it seems to me that that's an unfair advantage. It really, really is. And I keep thinking back to the days when my daughter was on the soccer field, and she was a hell of a defender on the soccer field. Very aggressive. I mean, she was tenacious. And she would go up against those big strikers. But if that striker was once a male, now deciding that they want to be a female, that would be unfair. That would be an unfair thing. And, and I can't imagine how I would feel as a parent if that were the case. Caitlyn Jenner, of course, is transgendered since 2015. She came out. And she says that a New York official's order banning female sports teams with transgender athletes from using county-owned facilities is a good thing. Let's stop it while we can, said the reality television star who came out as a transgender in 2015. The LGBT network a Long Island-based advocacy group called Jenner's comments a baffling contradiction to her own identity as a transgender woman that is not only hypocritical but also harmful to the LGBTQ community. Well, I don't know. I like this idea. This was put forward by Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. It applies to over 100 athletic facilities in New York's Long Island suburbs. Blakeman, a Republican elected in 2021, issued an executive order requiring any teams, leagues, or organizations seeking a permit for the county's Park and Recreation Department to expressly designate whether they are for male, female, or co-ed athletes. Any team designated as female would be denied permits if they allow transgender athletes to participate. Now, the ban does not apply to men's teams with transgender athletes. It covers all Nassau County-owned facilities, including ball fields, basketball, tennis courts, swimming pools, and ice rinks. Jenner said, all I'm trying to do is protect women. Well, what you're trying to do is protect women's sports and make it fair. I mean, what do we always say, about sports? That it needs to be fair. The level playing ground. A level field is what they say. Be fair. It's not fair if you have some, person who was born a male who gets out on the field of athletic play and participates against women because they have gone through some transgender therapy of some kind. They still have a huge advantage. This from the Post-Millennial. The drag performer Shangela was invited by the vice president to her residence in 2022. The performer was invited by Biden to the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. Shangela was also in the HBO drag series We're Here. Drag queen Shangela, who was invited by Kamala Harris to be the first drag queen at her residence for a Pride event, invited to the White House, also invited by President Joe Biden to attend the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act, has now, we have learned, been accused of multiple sexual assaults. This comes from Rolling Stone, hardly a conservative publication. The drag performer once was one of RuPaul's Drag Race's most well-known contestants. The performer's real name is Darius Pierce, has been accused by 4 people of sexual assault or attempting to have sex with them when they were too drunk to be able to consent. A 5th person alleges that Pierce attempted to, let's just say, have sex in a bathroom closet despite rejecting his advances. In the letter to the outlet, Pierce's lawyer labeled the allegations as false and unsupported by any evidence or reliable witness testimony, and that there were significant problems with the purported accuser's accounts. Yeah, you know what? If you have 1, you might buy that. When you have 5, not so much. Not so much. Passing the bar exam no longer required for law license in Washington state because of race equity concerns. Yes, the Supreme Court of Washington state has ruled that passing the bar exam will no longer be necessary for law licensure since such a requirement disproportionately and unnecessarily blocks historically marginalized groups from entering the practice of law. I don't know. I kind of want my lawyer to have gone past the bar. I don't know. I mean, it seems like to me it's not, you have to have some standards. About 3.5 years ago, the Washington Supreme Court created the Washington Bar Licensure Task Force, which it ordered to assess the efficacy of the Washington State Bar licensure requirements and to suggest possible alternatives to them. Last fall, the task force settled on a list of recommendations, which were then released to the public for comment. On Friday, the court issued its decision on the matter, taking into account the opinions of the task force and the public. I mean, what's next? Doctors who don't have to pass medical exams, who just, didn't really pass all the tests he was supposed to pass, but we're going to make him a doctor anyway.
But I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Exactly.
Oh, how that's insane. I mean, where do you draw the line on this stuff? I mean, there are some things, look, I agree. There are many things in life where you don't need a college degree or you don't need that piece of paper hanging on the wall. But when you start talking about the law and, and representing somebody who could go to jail if you don't represent them properly, I would like to know that there are some standards. I would like to know that my lawyer passed the bar exam.
But, I guess if you're dumb enough to hire a lawyer and not, check him out and make sure he's properly credentialed, then that's kind of on you, right?
Yeah, I guess it is. But, I'm telling you, really, all in the name of race equity. Listen, passing the bar is hard. But there ought to be some standards in play for certain professionals. I'd like to know my doctors have passed all the requisite tests and all of the things that they need to go through. I don't want that. I'd like, my daughter is an architect. Seems like you need to make sure that the architect actually is an architect. Well, she will be an architect. Just a few more days. Texas withdraws $8.5 billion from BlackRock over ESG concerns. This from the Washington Examiner. Texas will pull some $8.5 billion in investments from BlackRock over its ESG policies, the biggest such divestment after several Republican states have moved to cut ties with firms that the conservatives see as privileging liberal goals. Texas State Board of Education Chairman Aaron Kinsey announced the move on Tuesday. The letter was sent to BlackRock the same day, notifying the world's largest money manager. The divestment was done to comply with the state's anti-environmental, social, and governance law, which is the ESG, environmental, social governance. That's what it is. In other words, a lot of these investment firms now will forego investing in certain companies if they don't like their environmental, social, and governance policies. That's the ESG. And so, what the state of Texas is saying, listen, the only requirement that should be in any decision that you make is this a good company that can return my investment and make me money? That ought to be the only requirement. And there are firms out there that specialize in this kind of thing, where they analyze and they look at companies. And if you're a tree hugger, or if you really have concerns about things like this, there are firms you can go to and they will give you recommendations. But BlackRock, that's not the way they started, and they certainly became that way over time. And so now the state of Texas has taken out $8.5 billion with a B dollars and said, we'll put our money elsewhere where people will recommend investments based on whether or not it's a good company that makes money. They're going to be, that's the way it should be. This is insane, this stuff that goes on now. The whole world has just gone wacky, but this ESG stuff is really starting, to sort of show up everywhere, and it's being pushed very hard by the Biden administration. Very hard. They're trying to leave that kind of record and trying to push companies, to do certain things if they want to, to prosper and do well, or to get government contracts. They are now looking at their ESG records. And what if I've got a big federal contract that I'm about to let, I would care less about their tree hugger capacity and a lot more about whether or not they're qualified to do the job and they can do it well and get it across the goal line on time. That's what I care about. And that's what we all ought to care about. State of Texas is doing that. A lot of other Republican states are doing it as well, divesting of companies like BlackRock in order to make sure that when they make investments on behalf of the taxpayer, that the only decision that they want to know is it a good company? Does it have a history of returning on investment? And if so, what is that return on investment? Because really, honestly, when you're taking care of taxpayer dollars, that ought to be the only concern. That ought to be the only concern. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock.
The United States urging allies to help Ukraine. Riley Strain's parents unhappy with the search for Metro officials so far. And one corporate giant making sizable layoffs. Those stories and more coming up 5 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You're going to love this next story, guys. This is unbelievable. An angler fishing near Norris Lake Monday got the catch of his lifetime when he reeled in a nearly 4-foot alligator.
Whoa.
This is a 4-foot alligator in East Tennessee.
Tennessee. Ooh,
wow. Union County Wildlife Officer Rick Roberts received a call at 5 p.m. on Monday, that was yesterday, about the alligator in Dotson Creek. He thought it was a joke. The angler, when he got there, the angler had the alligator pinned to the ground and was holding the alligator behind its head. The angler told Roberts that he caught it on swim bait. At first, they thought it might be a caiman, which apparently you can legally possess in Tennessee. But after researching it, he determined, nope, this is a gator. Wow. 3 to 4 foot long reptile was taken to the Little Ponderosa Zoo, a nonprofit zoo and rescue facility outside Clinton. And according to Cameron, the rescue facility will hold the animal temporarily until a permanent home can be found. They say it's 3 to 4 years old. And they say they were not sure how it got there, but it probably didn't get there on its own. Probably a pet or something that got released into the wild.
At least let's hope so. Hope they haven't migrated this far north.
I look at that and I say, there's a fine pair of boots in that gator right there. 57 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know, Grace Point Healthcare is the standard for affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine. How? Well, as a direct pay provider, your health care is delivered without the red tape of an insurer's guideline. Don't they get aggravating sometimes? Smart Care plans make it even more affordable. They start at $69 a month, and you get an awful lot for that. You get free office visits and basic labs for an entire year. Now, Grace Point identifies and treats the root cause of a condition, not just the symptoms, through a comprehensive and functional approach. And by usually seeing you the same or next day, you're treated at your convenience. Grace Point Healthcare, affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. They are located on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 59 degrees and sunny on Music Row. Traffic and complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The U.S. urging allies to keep helping Ukraine. Andy Field.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin thanking world defense leaders in Germany for helping support Ukraine against Russia and saying he's doing all he can to get that continued help from the U.S. Congress.
And that's a matter of survival and sovereignty for Ukraine. And it's a matter of honor and security for America.
The Republican House Speaker is yet to bring that already passed Senate aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan to a vote.
And the Joe Biden administration and the U.S. Congress have directed about $75 billion in assistance to Ukraine, which includes humanitarian, financial, and military support. Here in Tennessee with a Riley Strain update, the search lives on for 22-year-old University of Missouri student who went missing on March 8th after being kicked out of Luke Bryan's bar on Broadway. Back on Thursday, officials cleaned out the banks of the Cumberland River. They didn't find anything until TikTok influencers found Riley's bank card. That's the only physical evidence that's been found so far. Strain's parents, Chris and Michelle, are here in Nashville. They're frustrated with the efforts from the search crews, feeling as if more organization is needed. They've now brought in 2 boats from the United Cajun Navy to help with the search effort. Crews should be hitting the river to search again today. Channel 4 spoke to those parents, Chris and Michelle.
I mean, they're heartbroken also. I mean, he's their best friend. And we love these boys like our own. And it's just as hard on them as it is on us.
And right now, we really are focusing on
bringing Riley home.
His last point.
He's my best friend. He's everything.
Detectives say they still have no evidence that any crime was committed here. Corporate giant Unilever says it's cutting thousands of jobs and making changes to some of its most familiar brands. The consumer goods company that produces everything from Hellmann's mayonnaise to Vaseline says it's going to cut 7,500 jobs worldwide. Unilever is also spinning off its ice cream business, saying its brands that most notably include Breyers and Ben & Jerry's were distinct from the rest of the company and said a sale was possible. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock, beginning hour number 3 of The Drive on this Tuesday, March 19th. We are, let's see, 5 hours exactly away from the beginning of spring. The vernal equinox, 10:06 tonight. So we could call this the first day of spring, but actually the first full day of spring will be tomorrow. This is a half day of spring.
So like I picture tonight at 10:06, all of a sudden when it clicks over from 10:05 to 10:06, the sun's going to come out. It's going to be like 80 degrees and all the birds are going to start chirping.
I wish that'd be that way. But 68 tomorrow would be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take 68 degrees tomorrow.
We'll take baby steps, I guess.
That's right. We actually had an early spring, which is sort of like an Indian summer. A late summer in the fall, and it gets warmer in the late fall. Sometimes they call that an Indian summer. I don't know. Maybe we should call it a indigenous peoples summer. I want to be correct and all that. Let's see what I've got. I've got some Tennessee news. I love this story because I've been telling you right now, I think that this whole thing about emotional support animals has been a scam from day one. You know what it is? People say, well, I have my emotional, support poodle. And I must carry it with me when I fly on an airplane. And, the airlines go right along with it, even though they know that is not an emotional support dog. It's just a cheap way for you to take your dog on vacation. You claim it's an emotional, and you can get anybody to sign off and say it's an emotional support animal. I mean, there were even stories about an emotional support miniature horse that got on a plane one time. This is not a joke. It happened. A little miniature horse. It's my support horse, my emotional support horse. What's a bunch of, what that is. That's because it's not. You're just scamming. You're playing people, and I'm not buying it.
You should have done the.
Yeah,
that would have made more sense for that.
I don't know why I didn't do that. I didn't know you had that button as well as me.
I'm sneaky.
I got that button right here, and you got it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have this one?
Oh yeah, got it. In stereo.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll do mine left, and you do yours. No, we won't do that. That would be too weird. Anyway, a long story short, Governor Bill Lee has signed a bill that bans emotional support animals from being in restaurants and hotels in the state of Tennessee. And I say, okay, I'm all for that. That's great. Congratulations. Good move. We like that. That's a good thing. He signed a bill that bans emotional support animals from indoor areas of food service establishments. As introduced, the bill prohibits emotional support animals that are not trained or being trained to perform tasks or work for a person with a disability. I mean, like if you're blind and you have a dog, that's a different thing, right? I mean, that helps. But they cannot be indoor areas of food service establishment. Dogs were already banned inside buildings that prepare or serve food, but the law extends the ban to specifically include the alleged emotional support animals. Only trained service dogs, police dogs, and fish that are inside of a tank are allowed inside of restaurants. I'm glad they made an exception for fish in a tank.
So you could have an emotional support fish if you wanted to.
I guess you could. Maybe,
knock yourself out.
Maybe you could walk in there with a little goldfish in a bowl, and you'd be technically this is my emotional support goldfish. And that would be it would be within the confines that you could get away with that. But we know what this is. We know what this is. This is people playing a game. It's a scam. It's always been a scam. And I say enough. Enough of this. I wish they would eliminate emotional support animals on planes. That's where it really gets abused. Well, it's not just my pet. It's my emotional support animal. I'm a nervous flyer. Well, then drive. Okay? They have another way. Take a train. If you don't like being on planes, don't get on planes. You have options. And it always hacks me off because people are just playing the system. And, well, I get really, when I go out in public, I really need my emotional support animal, or I just don't think that I can really function. Stay at home. If you can't get out and function in the world without your support animal, really, honestly, just stay home. We don't need you out here with the rest of us, quite frankly. Yeah, it's a gang. It's a scam, and I'm glad. I'd like to see more laws like this. Congratulations, Bill Lee. Glad you signed it. Congratulations to the state legislature for passing the bill. Of course, the one that we're all looking at right now is the governor's big educational voucher measure. There are a lot of, apparently, a lot of them wending their way through the state legislature. One understands there's one in the House and there's one in the Senate, and there's probably going to have to go to a conference. But the House voucher bill passed committee after some tense moments, according to WSMV. The private school voucher bill moved forward in the House Government Operations Committee on Monday. House attempting to pass its own bill that would provide vouchers to 20,000 students who want to attend private school, as well as benefits that teachers have been requesting for a few years. It's one of the bigger, if not the biggest, pieces of legislation that lawmakers are trying to pass this session. The House version moving through committee fast, and lawmakers still have many questions. One question brought forward by John Ray Clemens, Democrat of Nashville, broke into a tense moment between himself and Representative John Reagan of Oak Ridge. Are there any rules outlined here that are going to replace the money that the bill will steal from my kids' public school? Well, I'm telling you, that's not the way it is. In fact, schools are getting more money. You can do both. You can support public education, and you can then also give parents an option to go out and find a school that will work for their kid if the public school is not getting the job done. Listen, this is going through, and you're going to hear the Democrats squabble, and you're going to hear school districts like in Wilson County complain about it. The school boards are going to complain. But you know what? I'm telling you, if what they don't want is they don't want the competition. If you do a good job, you won't lose any students. I mean, most parents don't want to move their kids out of a school unless the school is failing. So if you're doing a good job, you don't got nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be fine. You don't got means that I went to public education. I went to a public school. You don't have anything to worry about. You don't got no problem. Ain't no problem here. No. I got a good education in my public school. Got me all the way to Washington, D.C. on a high school diploma.
Well, I mean, it was Washington, D.C.
Well, that's right. But, I mean, I made it all the way to a major market as a reporter and anchor with a high school education before I went to school. So it did me okay. I really can't complain. I put it all on Mrs. Hirsch, my history teacher. She was the one who got me lined out. I wasn't a great high school student. I really wasn't. I'm devolving for a moment, but I really wasn't a great high school student. And I was bored. My school, that was my main problem. And I just couldn't care less unless somebody caught my attention. Mrs. Hirsch, my American history teacher, my senior year in high school, got my rapt attention.
Would you use the yardstick?
No. I mean, that would be a rap. She was tough, but I loved her. I thought she was the best teacher ever. And I loved that class. But I didn't pay any attention, and I was not doing well. I just didn't care. I didn't care. And she asked me to stay after class one day, and she looked at me and said, "Brian, do you know that you cannot graduate unless you pass my class?" Because it was a requirement that you pass an American history test before you graduated in the state of Texas. And I said, "No, ma'am, I didn't know that." And she said, "Brian, you're not passing my class right now."
And you said, "Uh-oh."
I said, "Okay." So I took that. I think I graduated with a B. I got my attention. I started paying real close attention 2 American history tests after that, and I was able to squeak out a B. But I always remember her pulling me aside and telling me that. But listen, I had a good education. I was lucky that I was able to take this education I got in high school and turn it into something. But if you're in a school right now and it's not working, I mean, it's failing. They're focused on the wrong things. Maybe they're just not teaching kids how to read and write and do math and prepare for life. And when you get to the age of like 3rd grade, 4th grade, if you can't read, you're in trouble. And if you're a parent and you're saying, man, the school is not getting it done, I need another option, you ought to have one. And if you're doing a good job, I mean, most parents are happy to leave their kids in public school with all their friends. Maybe they're in sports or something, and they're thinking about that. One way or the other, they're happy to stay if you're doing your job. But if you're not doing your job, you got to have another option, and that's why I love this idea. Gives parents power over failing school systems. So when you hear a bunch of whining out of Davidson County, and when you hear a bunch of whining out of school systems, that what that tells you is they're worried because they're not doing the job. If you're doing the job, you don't have anything to worry about. Competition makes everybody better. Everybody better. It's true in life. It's true in radio. It's absolutely true in education. But it's going to be expensive. A $400 million bill that would overhaul public school achievement testing, teacher evaluations, and benefits is moving through. It's House Bill 1183. Gained a positive recommendation from the House Government Operations Committee. As he said, but those are public tax dollars. And the question is, where's the money going to come from? The crux of this story is Bill Lee says, it's too early to consider the higher cost estimates. Let's find out what we end up with, what the bill actually ends up looking like by the time it comes out of a House and Senate conference, and then decide how you're going to pay for it. We have money in this state. We're not bringing in as much money as we once did. That much is true. We are in a bit of a slump, but we still have plenty of money coming in, and we still have a rainy day fund that is the most states would love to have our rainy day fund. The other thing that's going on here in Nashville is this dadgum baffling case of the disappearance of Riley Strain. We've been looking at this story, every day. And the very latest on this is that, he's out with a bunch of friends. It's a fraternity weekend. He's out with a bunch of friends. They end up at Luke's bar downtown, and he is served one drink, we are told. And then they didn't like his behavior, so they asked him to leave. And so they escorted him out. And then he's seen in various locations on cameras, and he's stumbling drunk. I mean, if he only had one drink, if that's true, then, he was probably pretty inebriated before he got to that bar. Or there was something else at play, some other, maybe a drug or something like that may have been at play. I don't know. But, you got to wonder, because you see him in these various security cam videos. He's stumbling. He's falling down. He encounters a police officer because just passing him on the street, the police officer was investigating a burglary. Said, "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm doing fine, sir." Kept walking. And then they find his bank card. This is the weirdest thing of all. Down on the river bank, they find his bank card. And it was underneath some leaves. It was discovered by some people, some TikTok influencers who were just out there looking around, and they found it. Police didn't find it, but nothing else. No wallet, no clothes, no nothing, just the bank card alone. Now, why in the world, if you're walking around down there, would you just down on the river just decide to take your bank card out and deposit it and just throw it away? What was that about? It was never used. They're looking for fingerprints on it, but there's something weird about this case, something very strange about this case. And I don't know what's going to happen, but it's been 10 days now. and there's no sign of him. Just these various weird, strange videos of him walking around stumbling drunk. And then his cell phone doesn't work. And right about the place where the cell phone stopped working, they find his bank card just laying in the grass. I don't know. It's not making much sense to me, but that's the big mysterious story. How do you vanish without any trace? 21 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Busy Bee HVAC, if you need heat or cold AC, that's the number to call, 775-7833. They will buzz over to your house. They'll fix whatever's going on with your air conditioner. You're going to need your air conditioner for long. We are in the first day of spring now, so it's going to start getting warmer. Is your air conditioner up to the task? If you find that it's not, call that number, 775-7833. They'll come over, they'll fix you, and they get you up and going. But the way you prevent this kind of stuff from happening is that you get preventative maintenance, and that's what the Beehive Club is all about. For as little as $99, you can be a member of the Beehive Club. You get 3 thorough maintenance services, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, or online at busybeehvac.com.
An immigration law in Texas passed by the Supreme Court. Possible new legislation in Tennessee and Russian athletes not taking part in the opening ceremony of the Olympics. 5:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Maury's wild world of sports. And now, without further ado, here is Mac Maury.
Hello. Good afternoon. Still good afternoon, right? We wait till 6 o'clock for good evening.
We're okay with afternoon. There's plenty of sunshine. That'll work.
Good. Well, today I thought we could jump around and do a couple of different things depending on time. I wanted to...
Hang on. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my fault. My mistake.
You forgot the stinger.
So, jump around, do a couple of different things, but I wanted to start again on March Madness and talk specifically about the WTN March Madness brackets because I have emailed everyone on the Super Talk team to join our bracket pool. Brian Weber, I have seen neither of you join said pool on ESPN. So, I don't know if your emails aren't working or... Is this mic on? Hello? Have they gone?
The pool I care about is the kind you dive into.
Listen, it would be a complete guess. I mean,
That's fine.
That's me too. Like
same with. I don't know anything about whatever this 14. I don't know anything about these guys.
Yeah. See, Brian, he's already been twisting my arm earlier today. Him and Murphy were getting on me for not.
Oh, really?
Wanting to do it. It's like I don't watch basketball. Sorry.
I just don't feel like I'm qualified.
Yeah, that's how I feel. But
that's,
you know what?
That's the fun
of
it.
Most people probably aren't, though, that do this. So.
I'm not even. Listen, I wouldn't even say I'm qualified, quote unquote. It's going to be a fun thing and perfect for Mac Maury's wild world of sports. It's a great little content piece for us. We can keep up.
Talk about how terrible the picks are. And
exactly.
How the most clueless person's winning. That's usually how it works.
Oh, yeah, always. That's always how it goes. So, all right. Well, I'm going to wait. You guys got a couple days. I'm going to keep twisting your arms.
All right. I'll go. I didn't see the email, but I'll go back and look for it.
Okay, good. And if it's not there, we'll make sure and get it to you. So I wanted to go to the ice, though, here real quick with a couple minutes that we have left. Talk some Nashville Predators. We talked about them a few weeks ago after they, right around the NHL trade deadline because they were kind of surging, right? I mean, on a win streak, winning, 11 or 12 games, I think it was, 12 of 13 games. I mean, just crazy. They're on a point streak right now. I think it's 16 straight games with at least 1 point. Wow. So they're really killing it. They're fourth in the Central Division right now.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, they were a couple weeks ago. They were sixth. They were getting close. They're still rising. They've now created a 7-point gap between them and St. Louis at fifth with 82 points. The Predators, Blues at 75. But the Central Division, a three-way tie at the top. Jets, Avalanche, and Stars all tied for first with the Predators right there behind them. 9 points behind them. But all those Jets, Avalanche, Stars all tied with 91 points. There's still enough time left in the season. The Preds could make a run, not necessarily at the division, but, I don't know, maybe. They're all 9 points away. The Preds are hot. One or two of those teams maybe goes through a bit of a stagnant.
A bit of a slump?
Yes, a bit of a slump. And all of a sudden, the Preds are, they're for sure, I think, making the playoffs at this point. A few weeks ago, we were saying that was headed that direction. That's kind of a given now. The Preds are going to be in the dance. Let's just now look at seeding here and try and really make a run. This is a young kind of, team full of moxie and aggression. I'm really excited about this Predators team. They play physical and fast, and they're getting hot at the right time the closer we get to playoffs. So I think seeing them fourth in the Central, let's aim for third. Let's aim for one of these teams to have a little bit of a rut and the Preds to stay on this streak. Right now, 5 of the last 6 they've won. They're on a 2-game win streak. They're 8-2, and they're 8-0-2 in their last 10.
Well, what I picked up on all that was there is a chance I'm going to play the Catfish song.
Oh, yeah, Brian.
The
Get it ready.
Catfish song, we need to pull that out and dust it off.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's going to come back.
It's a fan favorite. Well, it's my favorite. Anyway.
It's our favorite, yeah.
All right, well, listen, it's time to get to the news. Here's Mac Maury with all that.
.5:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 58 degrees and sunny on Music Row. A traffic report, a weather forecast in 5 minutes. And it's not a ruling on the merits, but for now, the Supreme Court permitting the Texas immigration law SB 4 to go into effect. Stephen Portnoy.
The new law permits Texas law enforcement to arrest migrants, and it allows state judges to order them to leave the country. A federal judge has ruled SB 4 unconstitutional, saying it encroaches on federal authority. But the Fifth Circuit Appeals Court said despite that, the Texas law should be able to go into effect as the case plays out. And now the Supreme Court has said the same. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor has written a furious dissent, saying the High Court's action, quote, invites further chaos and crisis.
Legislation in Tennessee, a bill that, if passed, would allow people with certain permits to carry guns in businesses that prohibit and restrict them, being discussed today. It'll remove offenses of possessing a weapon in a building that prohibits or restricts them, allowing people with an enhanced handgun carry permit to carry inside, according to this bill's language. And the International Olympic Committee deciding Russian athletes will not take part in the opening ceremony at Paris Olympics. Ines de la Catera with more from Paris.
They're only being allowed to participate in the Olympics as individual neutral athletes. But now Russian and Belarusian athletes also won't be allowed to participate in the traditional opening ceremony at the upcoming Paris Olympics. About 36 neutral athletes with Russian passports and 22 with Belarus passports are expected to participate in the Olympics. The opening ceremony is set to be held on July 26 on the famous River Seine, with thousands of athletes floating down the river on boats.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, listen, let's tell you all about the folks at United Structural Systems, and they have a question for you. Do you have a waterproofing issue around your house? Well, you'll know it because your house will be telling you, giving you all the signs. Maybe you have standing water in your crawl space. Maybe you have wet basement walls. Maybe you're walking around and you smell musty odors or floor joists that have wood rot. Do you have cracks in your basement floors? Is your hardwood floors, are they cupping at all? All of these are signs that you really need to get a hold of the folks at United Structural Systems and have them figure out what's going on with your waterproofing issues. They can help you with poor drainage and all kinds of things. So why don't you give them a call and get started? They have 25,000 satisfied residential customers. They will come out, they'll assess your situation, they'll give you their best advice. If you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. They guarantee their best at USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and they're online at USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com. Here's the number, 615-488-7855. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I mean, well, the first full day of spring will be tomorrow. This is a partial day of spring, but we'll take it. 58 degrees right now in bucolic Watertown. I mean, that's almost 60.
Got lots of sunshine. It's
Lots
nice.
of sunshine. It's not horrible.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we're going to get, maybe up almost to 70. So almost.
I think that counts, right?
Well, I think
Spring-like.
we got a good start. Vernal equinox is officially at 10:06 tonight.
Yep.
That's your Central Daylight Saving time.
Correct.
Do we have any? I'm sorry. Do we have any moon news coming up? Or I haven't gotten a moon news update in quite some time.
The only real thing we got coming up that's moon related is the eclipse of the sun.
That involves the moon. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's coming up on April 8th.
Okay, good to know.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
I won't be here that day. I'll be in Henderson, Kentucky.
Set a reminder.
Just mark it on your calendar. Wilson's going to go see the total eclipse of the sun in Henderson, Kentucky.
That'd be cool.
I can't wait. There was big dog news today from the Supremes with regard to the border. Now, look, the border is everything right now. It is the biggest issue on the minds of voters as they ponder who they might vote for. People are very concerned about what's happening on the border. And the state of Texas has been just fed up to here with the lack of action by the Biden administration and all the problems that the open border policies of the Biden administration have foisted upon the state of Texas. And so they decided they're going to pass a law that would allow them to arrest migrants for, different things if they came into the country illegally. If the federal government wasn't going to do it, they thought that they would give a local law and they would do it. And it got complicated because there was some question about whether or not the state can actually do something that constitutionally has been the responsibility of the federal government. But the Texas said, well, hold on a minute, they're not doing their job. Are we supposed to just sit here and watch them fail? Don't we have the ability to protect ourselves, and shouldn't we? And so they've been going up and down the courts. Today, the high court said, yeah, this matter needs to be adjudicated, but while it's being adjudicated, you can enforce the law. This is big. This is huge because essentially while this matter is wending its way through the lower court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, I think is where it is now. That's based in New Orleans. They can enforce the law. And the law is basically you come across the border, we catch you, we, the state of Texas, catch you. You have two options. Go back across the border to Mexico or spend 6 months in jail because you have come into our country and you've come into the state of Texas illegally. Brandon Judd speaks on behalf of the rank and file members of the Border Patrol. He's in their union. Normally, rank and file members can't say what they think, but because he's the union rep, he can, and he's thrilled.
Oh, I'm ecstatic. This is going to be a great ruling for border security simply because it's going to be that deterrent that we're looking for. Anytime that you hold somebody accountable for violating our laws, you can expect a decrease in those violations. So, if Texas is able to implement this and they are able to charge people with trespassing and give them a consequence for the violation of that state law, we're going to see a decrease in illegal immigration through the state of Texas. The law is pretty strict. The law it's a pretty tightly written law. What I give Texas credit for is they looked at Arizona's law, SB 1070, and they recognized why it failed with the Supreme Court, and so they compensated. And so what they wrote into the law is it gives them great latitude to actually charge and hold people, but ultimately is what is a judge going to sentence these individuals to? And based upon that sentence is going to determine how long they're going to be held. But it really doesn't matter. Just the fact that you're going to be able to hold them, the fact that they're going to now have a criminal record, those facts are going to play into people's decision to cross into Texas. These individuals are not going to want that criminal record on their record because they're going to ultimately hope to get citizenship. And one of the things that stops you from getting citizenship is what is your criminal record. So look, this is huge for border security. Once they start enforcing this, you can expect to see an immediate drop. So what the resources that are going to cost today are going to be a lot less than what they cost 7 days from now.
Well, listen, I think he's exactly right on all that. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick goes into detail about what can happen now. He's also very happy with the High Court's decision.
Sounds like the court has made this decision that Texas has the right to defend ourselves against this organized, mobilized, cartel-driven invasion of our country. This is historic today, and I'm thankful for the Supreme Court ruling. I believe the ruling was 6-3. Now, this just says it goes into effect while it works its way through the courts, but this is a big statement that we can go into action now, and this law can become effective now. When we arrest someone that we've seen crossing, or we find out they've crossed here illegally, we will arrest them. We will get all of their information. So we will fingerprint them. We'll photograph them. We will do a background check. And then at that point, because they are here illegally, at that point, they can agree to spend 6 months in jail or go back to Mexico. If they go back and come back the second time, it increases to a felony, and they go to jail for many years.
Wow. So, look, once that word gets out, it shuts down people who are going to want to come across the Rio Grande River in the state of Texas. Now, doesn't do anything to help New Mexico and Arizona and California, who also share a border with Mexico. But they could adopt a similar law. They could adopt the law as Texas wrote it. And for right now, if they got it passed, they could enforce it, because the Supreme Court has said that the Texas law is okay to go forward until the matter is finally adjudicated. And it's a 6-3 ruling by the High Court, which means it was along ideological lines. The 6 conservatives were all in favor of letting Texas enforce the law. The 3 liberals dissented, as you might expect. But I'm telling you, I think that a lower court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, no doubt is going to look at what the Supreme Court has said as they begin to adjudicate the case at a lower level. It seems like to me that the Supreme Court would not take this action unless they were signaling that's sort of where they are as a court on this matter. Again, it has to wend its way through the courts, and it's entirely possible the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals will disagree, and this thing could come back to the Supreme Court. But the way it feels right now, this is a good move. It really shuts down everything happening in the state of Texas. A massive victory for Governor Greg Abbott, who pushed this legislation through. A body blow to the Biden administration, which really wanted this illegal migration to continue for crass political reasons. They didn't want to shut it down. So now I'm thinking this is great. I'm thinking this is a big game changer on the Texas border. Huge news today from the Supreme Court. It ain't over, but at least for a while, the migration should in Texas stop to almost zero. Nobody's going to come across the river if there's some chance that they're going to encounter a state patrol person. And by the way, again, now, isn't it great that we sent Tennessee National Guardsmen down to Texas to help Governor Abbott? Because, now he's got the ability to make arrests, and that support is very necessary. And I hope that other states will do the same thing. This is a remarkable story of states who decided that altogether that what was happening on the border was constitutionally illegal, and decided that they were going to push back as hard as they can. And now, through their support of the state of Texas now has the ability to shut this mess down, at least for a while. And I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. Let's see how the rest of it works. As long as we're talking about the Supreme Court. Yesterday, there was a case, an argument. It was called Murphy versus Missouri. And it was a Supreme Court case challenging the Biden administration's alleged coordination with big tech censors to censor certain messages. Now, according to Fox News, the case stemmed from a lawsuit brought by Republican-led Missouri and Louisiana that accused high-ranking government officials of working with social media companies under the guise of combating misinformation. That ultimately led to censoring speech on topics that included Hunter Biden's laptop, COVID-19 origins, and the efficacy of face masks, which the states argued was a First Amendment violation. As the justices questioned whether the Biden administration had crossed a constitutional line, it was Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the newest member of the High Court, appeared to suggest that such actions can be justified, and this is what she said.
Justice Jackson?
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods.
The First Amendment is hamstringing the government. I think that's sort of the purpose, one of the major purposes of the First Amendment. Well, Jim Jordan thinks so. He was in the room for the hearings.
The big takeaway today was Ketanji Brown Jackson when she said to the Solicitor General from Louisiana, she said, "You've got the First Amendment hamstringing the government." Well, that's what it's supposed to do, for goodness sake. It was literally one of the craziest things I've ever seen, that you could have a justice on the United States Supreme Court say that in the oral. I mean, it made no sense to me. That is frightening, because if she really believes that is scary where we're headed. Understand what took place here. This was censorship by surrogate. This was big government telling big tech to take down speech they disagreed with. And it was the most fundamental kind of speech. It was political speech, the kind that's supposed to have the most heightened scrutiny you can have before you can take that down. But that's what took place. And then to have a justice on the Supreme Court say what she said, that is frightening.
Well, it is frightening, and he's absolutely right. Do you love Jim Jordan? I mean, I'm just adore the guy. I mean, he's got such a great mind for this kind of stuff, and he's able to sort of enunciate the concepts in such a clear and coherent way. Maybe one of the brighter guys up on Capitol Hill. I really love that. By the way, there are liberals now who are calling for Sonia Sotomayor of the High Court to retire. She's almost, I think she turned 70 in June. And what this really means is they're asking her to retire because they're afraid that if she doesn't retire pretty soon, that Donald Trump will be the president and the Republicans will control the Senate, and they're not going to be able. They will turn the 6-3 court into a 7-2 court, which I'm entirely fine with. But it also says because they're asking her to retire early so they can replace her while the Democrats are in charge of the White House and the Senate, sort of suggests that they are really worried about the outcome of this coming election. 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock.
6 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 57 degrees with some sun still falling on Music Row. Got a traffic report, a weather forecast coming up 5 minutes away. A Riley Strain update. The search lives on for the 22-year-old University of Missouri student who went missing on March 8th after being kicked out of Luke Bryan's bar on Broadway. Back on Thursday, officials cleaned out the banks of the river. They didn't find anything until TikTok influencers found Riley's bank card. That's the only physical evidence that's been found so far. Strain's parents, Chris and Michelle, are here in Nashville. They're frustrated with these efforts from the search crews. They feel as if more organization is needed. They've now brought in 2 boats from the United Cajun Navy to help with the search effort. Crews should be hitting the river to search today. Here's Channel 4, who spoke to those parents.
I mean, they're heartbroken also. I mean, he's their best friend. And we love these boys like our own. And it's just as hard on them as it is on us.
And right now, we really are focusing on
bringing Riley home.
his last point.
He's my best friend. He's everything.
The parents are thankful to those crews for what they've done, but they want to make sure no stone is left unturned. Detectives say they still have no evidence that any crime was committed here. Right now, staying in the volunteer state, Channel 4 says Governor Bill Lee has signed a bill that bans emotional support animals from restaurants and hotels. Only trained service dogs, police dogs, and fish that are inside of a tank are allowed inside of restaurants. And the Pentagon now giving Israel public advice on the war with Gaza and urging their military to end the largest numbers of civilian casualties. Andy Field.
At a meeting of 50 world defense leaders in Germany, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warned Israel about its plans to strike Rafah in Gaza.
A military operation should not proceed without a clear and implementable plan to evacuate those civilians out of the battle space.
But Israeli leaders blamed Gaza civilian deaths on Hamas, saying the terror group uses them as human shields.
And an over-the-counter birth control pill now available to women nationwide. Online sales have begun. It will be in drugstores soon. Opill officially available online without a prescription. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everyone. 6:06 on Super Talk 99.7, 4 hours away from the vernal equinox. Yes, market. I mean, you'll need to stop and make note of it when it happens at 10:06. You'll say, "Spring is here." You'll feel like there'll be a tremor in the force.
Yeah, I'll have to set my alarm to wake myself up.
No,
make sure I'm aware.
You'll be in bed at 10:06. Well,
I bet you I will.
You're a bigger loser than I am. I mean,
I'm not going to deny it.
I'm telling you. As I get older, I tell you, I look at the wife and I go, this is what happens every night at my house. We're watching TV and we're into something that has several episodes. We're streaming something,
Yeah.
And it gets to about 9:30. And I say, I don't know. Are you ready to go to bed? She says, it's 9:30. No, it's not time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Says, we'll do one more. We'll do one more hour or one more episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'll okay. All right. And I start the last episode and I look over 5 minutes later. It's she's out.
Yeah.
She's done. And I'm wide awake by myself watching the episode. And then I'm an episode ahead of her because she fell asleep and doesn't know what happened.
That sounds familiar.
That sounds.
Gotta say.
I know. Well, I mean, anyway, she gets up earlier than I do, so I understand it. But I mean, we ought to just acknowledge that at 9:30 it really is time for us to go to bed because she's going to be asleep in about 5 minutes anyway.
Yeah. At the very least, don't start another episode of whatever it is you're watching so you won't miss.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we just had to sit and talk to each other, that'd get pretty dull pretty quick. I mean,
yeah, let's go.
I think she's a pretty good conversationalist, but I mean, I don't have that much to say. By the time I get off this show, I don't say much at all.
Yeah.
I've got it all out of my system, So anyway, that's how it works at my house. Sound familiar? Probably does. I want to start out with this little thing. I've been sitting on this all day and not knowing really what to do with it. Apparently, last night, there was a phone call between Joe Biden and Barack Obama. Now, why is this interesting? Well, because everybody now sort of believes that Joe Biden is in trouble, real trouble, and that if there's anybody out there who could tell Joe Biden, you know what, you're not going to win this thing. It's looking bad. You need to think about a plan B here that would be good for the party. Now, again, I want all the Joe Biden I can get. I just don't expect the Democrats are so stupid that they're actually going to renominate this man. And I look around and say, well, who could have that conversation with him? Barack Obama seems to be the only person who could do that, I think. So that he had a phone call, it's interesting. It's also very interesting that we haven't heard anything from Obama. And then a couple of days ago, he showed up at 10 Downing Street. Well, it's just a courtesy visit. What's that all about? I mean, that seems very strange. I'm just dropping by to say hello to the Prime Minister of Britain. No, there's nothing. I'm just a courtesy call. Was in the neighborhood, thought I'd come by and see the Prime Minister. And then a phone call. I don't know. Something's up with that. I don't know what it means. It may have something to do with Ukraine, and that it's going to be very, very hard to get money out of the Congress right now for Ukraine. It seems, and it may be that he's doing some diplomatic work on behalf of the Biden administration, or it might have just been a courtesy call. I don't know, but that's 2 times now in the last few days where Obama has emerged as a topic of conversation. Here's what Karine Jean-Pierre had to say about it on Air Force One today.
When was the last time President Biden and President Obama spoke? I don't have a call to read out to all of you, but as you know, they're close. They're like family. They speak regularly, and just don't have anything else to share.
Don't have anything else to share. Nothing to see here. I don't know. Interesting. Now, where is Joe Biden? He's out campaigning out west in Arizona and Nevada. Why? Because he's in big trouble out there. CNN, I watch them so you don't have to. They got this guy named Harry Enton And he's pretty good at crunching numbers and looking at stuff. And, of course, he's doing it because he's trying to send up the flare for Democrats. Hey, you got a problem here. You got a real problem here. I don't want you to miss the fact that you got a problem here in Nevada and in Arizona. Here's Harry Enton.
Biden barely won Arizona back in 2020, won it by well less than a percentage point, won Nevada by a little bit more than 2 percentage points. Look now where we are in the 2024 polling. Joe Biden's numbers are weak. Donald Trump up in the polling average in Arizona by 5, up in Nevada by 5 percentage points. If these polls hold, Donald Trump would be the first Republican presidential candidate to carry this over state since 2004 when George W. Bush carried it.
What appears to have changed inside some of these numbers that you're looking at?
How about Hispanic voters, right? A core part of the Democratic constituency. Normally, back in 2020, Joe Biden carried Hispanic voters in Arizona by 24 points. He carried them in Nevada by 26 points. Look now, Joe Biden still leads, but these margins have shrunk significantly. Been cut by more than half in Arizona, 11 points. Been cut by a third of where the lead was back in 2020. It's just an 8-point advantage for Joe Biden. And this is what we have seen as well nationally. Joe Biden's polling numbers among blacks and Hispanics have dropped significantly.
Well, that's huge when you think about it. I mean, black voters, for example, the statistics that I've seen of late suggest that Trump's support among black voters is 3 times what it was in the last election. That's right, 3 times. Now, does Joe Biden still have the majority of blacks? Yes, but a great number of blacks are now moving over to the Donald Trump column, and I think it has to do with the fact that many black Americans look at the Democrat Party and say, you haven't done, you count on my vote, you count on my vote, we give you our vote, we give you our vote. What have you done for me? Donald Trump got me a job. Donald Trump had a good economy. I was doing well during Donald Trump, not doing so well under Joe Biden. Inflation is up and I could barely pay my bills. And I think a lot of them realize life was better under Donald Trump. Hispanic voters, though, that's interesting. I mean, because you would think, the conventional wisdom would be, hey, he's letting all of these Hispanics come across the border, and you should be in favor of that. But they're not. They're really, a lot of Hispanics are very irritated by it all, quite frankly. Think it's wrong. Many people who came to this country legally are looking at what's going on now, and they're looking down their noses with disdain. And so with black voters and Hispanic voters, that's the difference right now, it would seem to me, in Arizona and Nevada, and that's where the president is campaigning today. He's got a problem. Now, Harry Enton, this guy from CNN, went on to talk about something I talked with you about yesterday, and that is the importance of Michigan. He also looks at Georgia. So he's doing the same thing that all of us folks are sort of geeks about this stuff do. He's got his electoral map out, right? And he's trying to figure out, how you get to 270. And he says, it's looking sort of bad for Joe Biden right now to get to 270.
So if Biden loses Arizona and Nevada, he likely must win at least 3 of these 4: Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Now, Biden could do it if he won Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He'd barely get to 270. Here's the issue right now. Biden seems to be trailing not just in Georgia, but in Michigan as well. And if he loses these 2, John, I can't find a map that would work for him. So it's simple math at this point. Biden's behind in Arizona. He's behind in Nevada. He's behind in Georgia. He's behind in Michigan. And if that map holds, ball game over, most likely. Donald Trump wins.
Yeah. That's the way it looks right now. Donald Trump would win. So how is this all coming together? Let me look at the Real Clear Politics map here for just a moment and sort of crunch a couple of numbers for you. The battleground numbers are like this. In Wisconsin, Trump leads by 1. Tight. He leads, however, by 1. In Arizona, he leads by 5.2. Georgia, 5.7. Michigan, and that's the all-important Michigan, he leads, and this is an average, right, 3.5. He is just squeaking ahead with 0.6 ahead of Biden in Pennsylvania. North Carolina, 5.5. Nevada, 5.6. He's going to pick up Nevada. He's probably going to pick up North Carolina. He's probably going to pick up Arizona. He's probably going to pick up Georgia. And then it comes down to me, really, honestly, it comes down to Michigan. I mean, that's going to be the state to watch. And remember, I've explained again what the situation in Michigan is. You've got 310,000 Arab American voters, Muslim voters, who are irritated with Biden's policy with regard to Gaza and Israel. And they voted during the primary uncommitted, sending a message that we are not happy. And if that holds, and if they truly do vote for Trump or don't vote at all, Trump wins Michigan. I mean, it's really going to come down. Every way I look at it, it's probably going to come down to Michigan. President Joe Biden's campaign has acknowledged that the race is going to be a tough one. He talked about, at the end of the day, we know it's going to be a tough, close race. A Biden campaign, he told reporters Monday. That's why we're investing in multiple ways to get to 270. In tight races, that work matters, he said, of campaign offices opening, volunteer investment, and advertising buys. This early outreach mobilizes our diverse coalition, and getting boots on the ground is how we're going to win. Trump outpolls Biden in Arizona and Nevada by an average of 5 and 6 percentage points, respectively, according to Real Clear Politics. The former president is outperforming the incumbent in other battleground states, as I said. So they are acknowledging it. I'm telling you. And then, they're putting out ads, and they're taking advantage of this thing that Donald Trump said, the bloodbath comment. Again, let me just go over this one more time. He's talking, he's doing a campaign speech, and he says the following.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars.
See, he's talking about cars, but they cut it off right here. Right here, he goes.
It's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
Now, then they're suggesting that when he says that, what he's suggesting is that if he's not elected, that there are going to be riots on the street. And then that's what he's saying, that there's going to be a bloodbath in America. Bloodbath is an economic term as well as the other term. When you talk about a bloodbath, you can have a bloodbath in the markets. You could lose a lot of money. It was a bloodbath. Economically speaking, he's talking about cars here. But they take that and they turn it into an ad. Here's the thing, though. The American people are getting really smart about this stuff. And they're smarter than falling for this stuff. It's not going to work for them. And the Democrats, when they cut up a soundbite in an unfair way, that irritates people. They don't. That's not nice. That's not the way you play the game. You can't take somebody's words out of context, and that's exactly what they're doing in this particular case. But they're trying to do it. So today, Ohio, and let's see, I got all the states that were coming in today. We got Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kansas, and Ohio. And I saw Donald Trump voted in Florida today. Of note, first time we've seen her in a long time, Melania was by his side as he stopped and talked to reporters, looking, by the way, well, like Melania always does. Perfect. 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. All right, be honest. Are you happy with your weight? I was not happy with mine. I started regaining a lot of the weight that I lost last year, and I decided to do something about it. Though I have never taken on a weight loss client before, I am very impressed with the program that Jamie and Carly at Restoration Wellness Med Spa in Lebanon developed for me. By the way, really nice people. You see, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. They took a look at my lifestyle, looked at my history, and suggested an approach that's starting to show real results right now, down 10 pounds. Amazingly, the other good part about it, I'm not hungry, which is huge. Beyond that, Cabana Wife and I are undergoing peptide therapy at Restoration Wellness Med Spa and are thrilled with those results. We both noticed greater mental clarity and increased energy. So whether your goal is to lose weight or to improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness Med Spa has a solution for you. Maybe it's time to join more than 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results. You could be among them. Here's the number. You ready? Write it down. 615-470-8124. 615-470-8124. Learn more at restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a Guaranteed Offer and start packing.
You know, as long as we're talking about politics for a moment and the campaigns, former President Donald Trump is, of course, now the Republican presidential nominee, presumptive, and his team is already starting to think about, well, if he wins a second term, how should we staff the cabinet? A lot of names are being thrown around. I thought you might find it interesting. The report claims that, this is according to Bloomberg, Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran against former president, was always complimentary of Trump throughout the campaign. He's been ruled out as a vice presidential running mate, but he is being considered for Homeland Security Secretary, among other cabinet positions. When it comes to VP, it looks like it's coming down to these names. You ready? Tim Scott is one person who hasn't been ruled out. Remember, we talked a moment ago about how black voters are now moving toward Trump. If that could help that premise, and more black voters then could vote for that ticket because they have Tim Scott on it. I like that idea. It's not a bad one. He is very, very hardline on abortion, and Trump has said he thinks that's a weakness to some degree for Republicans. But he's getting a lot of support. And he seems like, I think, the likely choice. My personal guess is I thought it might be Kristi Noem, but I think it's going to be Tim Scott. Others, though, being considered is Kristi Noem, Republican of South Dakota, the governor. Representative Byron Donalds, he's not as well known, but boy, is he formidable. A former Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard, and Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. That's interesting. Wouldn't that be an interesting choice? That will happen, we are told, before the Republican National Convention. He'll start talking about running mates and other things before the convention, which is scheduled to take place July 15th through the 18th in Milwaukee. It could have been Nashville, but no, it's going to be Milwaukee. Let's not forget that, by the way. It still rubs me the wrong way. Every time I see Milwaukee, I think it could have been Nashville. Now for the stupid Metro Council. Energy Secretary Doug Burgum, Republican of North Dakota, the governor there. He has been a strong supporter of doing something about energy. Chief of Staff, you might be surprised by this. They mentioned the name Kevin McCarthy, the former House Speaker. Anyway, he's well plugged in and pretty smooth, by the way, as an operator. He couldn't hold on to the speakership, but otherwise pretty smooth operator. It's being talked about. But I love this. I love this so much. I can't begin to tell you how much I love this. Senators Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, Cruz of Texas, Mike Lee of Utah, are being floated as a possible attorney general. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Cruz all the way. And Mike Lee, I have some issues with Mike Lee, but he's a pretty reliable conservative. I'll get you that one. But Ted Cruz would be so remarkably good. This is a position that requires a lot of knowledge. You have to be politically adept. Actually, it would seem to under Trump, because he went through attorney generals like people go through underwear. I mean, you've got to be able to walk that tightrope, and I think Cruz is smart. He's so smart. Clearly, I think if you were to measure IQs in the United States Senate, there's some that would barely register, but he's right at the top. He's a smart guy, went to Harvard Law. His professors raved about him even then, said he's one of the best legal minds that ever come through that school. Should have been on the Supreme Court because he'd be awesome. But one way or the other, he could be confirmed by the Senate, it would seem to me. And, I think Ted Cruz as Attorney General, that would be a remarkable thing. But, I mean, are we getting ahead of ourselves? Maybe a little bit. But, I mean, you have to be thinking about this stuff, especially who the running mate is. That's a big decision. And you're looking for, in a running mate, you're looking for somebody who either comes from a state that you desperately need, and there's no great Republican names that spring to mind out of Michigan. So I don't think that's a likelihood. That's the state that Trump really needs, is Michigan. If he could find a good Republican in Michigan, that'd be a good thing, but I don't think there are many. None that leap to mind. And so there's that. Or you look for somebody who, would appeal to a group where you have problems. Now, Trump's weaknesses are women voters. So, I mean, that's why I thought Kristi Noem might be a good one. But I don't know. The more I look at it now, when I see these numbers that suggest that black voters are supporting Trump 3 times greater than they did in 2020, seems like to me Tim Scott's the guy you pick. He'd be the one that I think you'd have to look at pretty closely. It's 6:30 now on Super Talk 99.7. Time for the news. You know, if you've lived around here for a long time, you know about Eurofix. They've been in Middle Tennessee, the place to go for your European car repair needs for some 24 years now, and we've watched them grow. Well, I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off, and they are now proud to announce their 5th location in Mount Juliet, on Mount Juliet Road, right across from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix now can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and Mount Juliet. It's pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in a barn in the backyard of a single-wide trailer grow to 5, count them, 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. So why don't you call them? 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX. Or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, sent you. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. We're here for about another 22 minutes, and then we're going to go into our backyard and get ready to witness the vernal equinox at 10:06.
Is that what we're supposed to do?
Yes, we're like druids.
Just go out there and just stare at the sky.
10:06. There it is. Says when it's 10:06 on the dot. There, can you feel the tremor in the force? The spring has finally arrived.
A warm breeze starts to blow.
That would be great, wouldn't it? And as long as they blow those blossoms away from a daggum pool, that's what I'm telling you.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. No, they no matter what happens, there is a tree that will put blossoms in my pool.
Oh yeah,
and that is a goopy mess, man. You clean that stuff up. There is some kind of spending deal that has been reached in Washington. Now, as I understand it, this has largely been negotiated between Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and the President of the United States. And as is often the case when there is a compromised piece of legislation to fund the government, there are going to be people on both sides who are not happy with the compromise. President Biden, Speaker Mike Johnson, according to thehill.com, are risking political blowback from the left and right on a 6-bill spending package that lawmakers are scrambling to pass before the government shuts down on Saturday. Now, congressional aides are still finalizing the text. Lawmakers say they expect the bill to become public soon and predict it will draw fire from both sides of the political spectrum. The pushback the legislation faces in both chambers could make it difficult to get President Biden's desk by 11:59 p.m. Friday, when technically funding for a large swath of the government will expire. They say there's a rule in the House that you're supposed to get 3 days to look at this stuff. And, we're running out of time. And there's always going to be some last-minute hiccups. And so, is it possible that the government will shut down technically on Saturday? Yeah. But it's the weekend. And if they're on track to do something, let's say Saturday, I think it's going to be a long week for people. I think they're going to have to stick around. They hate it when that happens. A source familiar with the deal says it includes cuts in federal funding for non-governmental organizations that provide transportation and food vouchers to migrants who are released into the country on asylum claims. This concession to House Republicans, they'll like it, but it won't please immigration advocates on the left. And the other part is that it's a big bill. You're talking about a lot of money. And every time you talk about a lot of money, people say, no, we're just adding to the deficit. We're adding to the deficit. We can't spend that much money. So the Republicans are not going to like it for that. And the Democrats are not going to like it because the White House has made concessions on immigration. Again, we're talking about a bill that nobody has seen yet. So, wait till they see it and we'll see. But apparently something is moving. Larry Summers, remember him? Lawrence Summers, Treasury Secretary under Clinton and economic advisor to Obama, is going to get himself in trouble with the left once again, while the president of Harvard, he's also now the president of Harvard. Larry Summers, Treasury Secretary under Clinton, economic advisor to Obama, current president of Harvard. Tells you everything you need to know about him. He blurted out the obvious fact that men and women may be different, leading to a vote of no confidence by the faculty of Harvard. And since Biden's election, he's been critical of the president's economic policies, warning that they are harming the economy. Well, he's done it again, this time in an economic paper that provides the explanation for what the left calls vibesession, the persistent belief by Americans that the economy is much worse than the official statistics indicate. When higher rates, mortgage payments, car payments, and other credit card payments required to finance everyday purchases have risen as well, it is not surprising this would affect how consumers feel about the economy, he says. No doubt you've seen the arguments from the pundits that Americans are somehow wrong to believe that the economy sucks for them. Panicked administration officials and mainstream media folks keep telling everybody things are great and pointed all the economic numbers to prove that to be the case, yet nobody is buying what they're selling. Summers explains why. He says the numbers have been calculated, have changed so much since the 70s and 80s that they don't capture the true misery that people are feeling anymore. The difference, the rise in interest rates, which increase the cost of purchasing goods, if not goods themselves, no longer measured as part of inflation. The number, you're right. We all focus on these damn numbers that come out from the government, and they're really meaningless. What really matters is, how do you feel? Do you have the ability to pay your bills, to do what you need to do for your family, to put a roof over your head and food on the table and clothes on your back? Do you have that? And if you're having a struggle, then it doesn't matter what the numbers say. It's not good for you. The numbers. I mean, again, I sometimes think that they pump a lot of sunshine with these numbers. Now, I've asked this question a lot of times. Everybody says, no, the numbers, are the numbers. And they there's no way that they can punch these numbers up. I disagree. I just disagree. It's funny how you hear like some piece of good economic news, and then you barely notice a couple of months later when they revise that estimate. Nobody says anything about that. I think that's the game. I think that, and boy, anything that comes out, any number that you see during an election year from the administration, you got to worry whether or not that's a real number or not. After a short dip, according to the Tennessee Star, Tennessee gas prices have risen to 2022 levels. We did get a reprieve for gas prices, but they're now on the rise again, and they are nationwide as well. Monday's average price for a gallon of gas in the Volunteer State was $3.09. I noticed this, that normally I can fill up my pickup truck for around $50. You know, if I'm going to get down to a quarter, it's about $50 to fill it up. It was 60-something this time. Up from $3.07 a week ago, according to the American Automobile Association. A month ago, the average price for a gallon of gasoline in Tennessee was $2.98. A year ago, it was $3.10. So we're almost back where we were a year ago. It is currently the highest in Williamson. If you're in Williamson County, you are paying $3.33. $3.27 in Haywood County. Gas prices in Davidson County average $3.14. Yeah, the gasoline prices. I think they're going to do everything they can to drive down the price of gas, but they really don't have any place to turn. They simply cannot go to the strategic oil reserve again. They just can't. They just about drained the damn thing. They just can't keep taking money after oil out of that thing in order to drive down the price of oil and therefore the price of gasoline. Biden says, look, don't think about inflation. His ever-changing explanation for rising inflation has shifted to the dual villains of corporate greed and shrinkflation. It has I can't possibly be that Biden's economic policies are causing inflation. No, it can't be that at all. It's those greedy corporations. This guy doesn't have a clue as to how a real business operates. He just doesn't. I mean, he's been in government so long, he's never had to make a payroll. He's never had to, to work for a paycheck that wasn't from the government teat. I said teat. Inflation remains a major problem for Mr. Biden with the election looming. An angry public blames the president for soaring prices and eye-popping food costs that have hit several key Democrat constituencies, including minority voters and low-income and middle-class voters. He received more bad news last night about inflation rising again, according to the Labor Department. Consumer Price Index went up. But he keeps saying, he says it's those greedy corporations. Listen, if he understood anything about inflation and economics really, he would understand that his policies are largely the cause for this thing that he starts to lament called shrinkflation. I mean, think about it. If a company has rising costs, that let's say you make cookies, and you need certain ingredients to make cookies, and all those ingredients go up. All right. So what are you going to do? Out of the goodness of your heart, are you going to lose money and keep making those cookies and selling them for the same prices? No. You have two choices. Number one, you increase the price. But when you increase the price, you know what happens? Market share goes down. Things get more expensive, people buy less of it. It's a basic rule of the economics. All right, so if you don't want to do that, the other option is, okay, you make the cookies a little smaller and you charge them the same amount. You make the packaging a little smaller and you charge them the same amount. Yeah, I know. It's a little deceptive, but it's one of two options you have if your costs go up. Because you can't stay in business if you absorb that. Now, sometimes, companies will, in order to maintain market share, make a tough decision that we're not going to make as much profit as we once did. But you just can't. You just can't sell a product at a loss. If you are, you won't be in business very long. So you have to either raise the prices or you have to shrink the size of the packaging to fool the public. Both of these things are caused by inflation, and inflation is the responsibility of the people who are in charge of the economy, and the people in charge of the economy are the Biden administration. I just got a minute left, and I don't have much time to get this in, but I've been wanting to do this story all week. Langley Air Force Base is on the Chesapeake Bay on the East Coast, not far from Washington, D.C. Sprawling naval station. and apparently the epicenter of waves of mysterious drone incursions that have occurred through the month of December. The War Zone, which is the name of a website, has been investigating these incidents and the response to them for months. They know that they were so troubling and persistent that they prompted bringing in advanced assets from around the U.S. government, including a NASA research plane. Now the Air Force has confirmed what they did indeed occur and provide details on the time frame. Apparently, I'm cutting through a lot of the rather obtuse writing here. Apparently, they say that there have been a tremendous number of drone incursions. Now, when they say drones, they mean unmanned aircraft. Now, is that commercial drones like, we can buy? Is that like a military drone that only a nation state could provide? One way or the other, they've got all of these drones that are making incursions into very sensitive airspaces on the East Coast. Maybe as many as 1,000. And so now they're saying we're trying to figure it out. We don't know where they're coming from. We can't identify it. And they're bringing in all kinds of very sophisticated assets to try to determine where the drones are coming from. Who are these people? Who are causing these drone incursions into sensitive military space? Now, they're not talking about UAPs here. These seem to be man-made drones. But who's sending them into sensitive airspace is another question. I have more questions than I got answers out of this. If this is just some people who are playing with commercial drones, that's one thing. If it's something else, then they need to look at it pretty closely. 20 minutes, make that 50 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.